Welcome to our land use meeting of June 2nd, 2016. We're back. Glad that all of you are here, and it's nice to look in the audience and see some children taking advantage of seeing what their local government does for them during the day. So we're glad to have you here. First, I want to say we do have a pledge of public conduct. I'll go ahead and read it. We may disagree, but we will be respectful of one another. We will direct all comments to issues, and we will avoid personal attacks. At this time, I'm asking that anyone in the audience, as well as up here on the dais, please cut your cell phones off, because it is very disturbing, and we would certainly appreciate it up here. So why don't we go ahead and move forward. The invocation this morning is Joy Sheckliff from Grace Bible Church.
You sure about that?
I talked to her about it this morning. And by the way, I just wanted to say a big thank you. I know that Grace was very involved in our parade in Lakewood Ranch on Sunday, and you guys were awesome. Such good help. Thank you for that.
Thank you. It's truly an honor to be here with you, Chairman and Commissioners, and we're just blessed that we can come together in unity. So, Father, we just thank you this morning, Father God, for those that you have placed, Father, and positioned for such a time as this in leadership of our county. We're truly blessed this morning, Lord God, as they give of themselves, Father God, for the welfare of the citizens in Manatee County. Father, we commit their work, Father, to you and ask that you would come, that you would fill them with the wisdom from above, Father, that is reasonable, easy to entreat, peaceable, without any prejudice, Lord God, for the welfare of all. Lord, we ask that you would come and fill this place as they begin to discuss the issues that are at hand, some that are complex, that you would impart the wisdom in this place for the entire region. So, Father, we thank you and we commit this time to you in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Nicole, do we have any changes to the agenda this morning?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair. We have two. The first is item number 6, PA 1602, Ordinance 1613, which is the county-initiated map amendment for Knights Inn. There is a corrected legal in the ordinance, which is attached to your update memo. And the other item to be noted is item number 11, which is adoption of resolution R16061. It's a resolution vacating a portion of the right-of-way at Broadway in Tennessee. This needs to be voted on prior to item number 9. And that concludes the corrections.
Right. Well, thank you. We'll go ahead at this point. We don't have any awards, presentations, or proclamations this morning. So we'll go ahead at this point and open consideration for future agenda items. Madam Clerk, if you would get ready to set the clock. We take 30 minutes at the beginning of our meeting, and each person gets a total of 3 minutes to speak. I do have several cards, and I want you to know that they've been numbered for however they were turned in. Each card got a number, so they're in order as they were received. First one is Troy Newport, CSAB funding. If you would give us your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Our group had coordinated to be here during the last commission meeting to speak, but there was a large constituency here to express their feelings on the Terra Bridge project. So due to the importance of our issue, we had to come today to come before you. So I appreciate you hearing us out. My name is Troy Newport. I'm a business owner here in Manatee County. I've lived in Bradenton for almost 11 years, so I am a taxpayer. For the 2016 to 2017 school year, I will be the board chair for the Junior Leadership Manatee Program. I'm also a board member for New Path Academy. With me today, I have board and staff members of New Path Academy, as well as some of our students. We are a nonprofit school that serves at-risk youth in Manatee County. Last week, we learned that the CSAB board passed up the opportunity to provide supplemental funds for our school. We had requested $125,000 to serve an additional 50 at-risk youth in our alternative school setting, which is only 46% of total operating expenses, and $175,000 to serve an additional 100 at-risk children in our after-school program, which is only 43% of total operating expenses. That translates to only $8.92 per child per day for our alternative school and $7 per child per day for our year-round after-school and summer program. A matrix is used to objectively score programs and determine which are most worthy of county funding, or in other words, the use of our taxpayer dollars. It's our understanding the matrix was put in place because the community wanted to remove as much subjectivity from the scoring process as possible. Our alternative school scored over 91 out of 100 on the matrix, and the after-school program scored 89 out of 100 on the matrix. The funding we requested was not to fund students currently in our programs, it was to add additional slots to our existing programs. We only asked for 46% and 43% of total operating revenue respectively, whereas most other programs are completely funded by the county, and yet we were still not selected for any funding. If all the other programs selected for funding had scored higher on the matrix, this would be understandable. However, new programs were instead selected for funding that scored in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and funding was increased for programs that scored in the 80s, while programs that scored in the 90s were not approved for funding increases. A program that was funded doesn't even have a 501c3 status. Then, in an unprecedented move, $157,000 was placed in reserves instead of approving funding for our programs. At the end of the funding meeting, a member of another local agency spoke to the CSAB board during public comment and voiced his pleasure with how everything unfolded that evening, and stated she felt funding was selected on board members' pet projects and special interests. If the matrix is going to be used, then it should be followed. Or if the matrix isn't going to be used, then it should be formally removed from the process. And we, the taxpayers of Manatee County, should be informed why the matrix isn't going to be used any longer and how you plan on ensuring strong stewardship of our dollars. So today we come before you and request reconsideration. We have children attending our school who are out of options. We were their last hope to...
Need to finish up, please.
You
Sorry.
bet, I'm right there. We were their last hope to finishing their education and breaking a cycle which could potentially place them in the legal system. So don't take my word for it. Listen to each of their stories and how we've been able to help them at our school.
Thank you. Zachary Swab, CSAB funding. If you would state your name, please, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Zachary Schwab. Ever since I started 6th grade, I didn't perform as well as other students academically because I have ADD, and it is harder for me to focus. In the middle of my 7th grade year, my father died of an accidental medication overdose, which made me reluctant to take my ADD medicine, only making things worse. I found it harder to focus in class, often drifting off into thought and losing my overall interest in school. I was often bullied by other students and told it was my fault and called names. Although I knew this stuff wasn't true, it was still upsetting. The beginning of my 9th grade year was only worse. I nearly failed. If it were not for New Path Academy, I wouldn't be passing 9th grade this year. I like how the learning is hands-on and one-on-one, so I can learn at my own pace. I once again like school.
Thank you, Zachary. Good job. Thank you, sir. Nice to have you here with us this morning. Devin Giles. Come on down, Devin.
Hi, my name is Devin. I've been attending New Path Academy since it first opened. The reason I'm attending New Path is because I was truant from public school for a year and a half. The reason I was a truant from public school is because I was falling behind and I thought it was a waste of time. And then I started going to New Path, and at first I wasn't really on board with it, but then I started going every day and looking forward to it. One reason I prefer New Path is because it's a good alternative for kids that don't work in public schools and big classes, and the one-on-one is nice. I enjoy going to New Path, and I hope you support our school.
Thank you. very much. Jalen Lawrence?
Hi, my name is Jalen. I'm in 11th grade at New Path Academy. I'm one of the kids that got kicked out of my homeschool because of a nonviolent act I made. I didn't want to go to New Path, but I didn't want to go to Horizon either. Instead, I'm learning faster than I expected. I think it's because of the one-on-one learning and the hands-on teaching. When I was at my homeschool, I loved playing basketball, but my grades were low. I'm working on getting into SEF, and I want to earn a college degree and play basketball. I don't know how I'll be able to do that without New Path Academy. I hope you support our school.
Thank you, Jalen. That is, okay. Justin Norwood. I know, Justin, you and I discussed this earlier, but you have procedures down here, so the other, I am assuming, will come under another topic.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Justin Norwood. Good to see a full board here today. I have just two topics for your consideration. Kind of pales in comparison to what we just saw there, but the first is a topic of just drones. And might seem like kind of a silly topic, but as some of you know, I'm an executive at IBM, and I specialize in e-commerce. And even though it may seem futuristic, we're getting very close to the point where drones will be used for delivery of e-commerce goods. And as many of you know, we've got a Amazon distribution center just to the north of us, and they're primed technologically. They're primed to do drone-based delivery to people's homes, and quite frankly, they're just waiting for FAA approval. And while the FAA approval is important, and they've been vetting that out for, in fact, almost a couple of years now, the FAA is primarily only interested in safety, and that's important. However, there are other considerations, as you guys well know, as it relates to the county and considerations around certainly noise and just general attractiveness. And as many of you might have seen in futuristic movies, perhaps like Back to the Future and maybe even Minority Report, even Hollywood's dreaming of a future where there's flying machines involves aerial roadways, if you will. And so I think there's a lot of considerations, even though this might seem very forward-thinking. I think we're getting very close to the point where the FAA is going to approve drone-based delivery, and I think as a county and municipalities around the country, we need to start getting ready for that, planning for that, and potentially even looking at our comprehensive plan and/or land development code to think about that. Personally, I would recommend maybe even considering a moratorium until some best practices are established in other municipalities, and then adopting those and making sure that that Manatee County remains beautiful in this brave new era that we're about to enter. That's my first point. The second thing I'd like you guys to consider is actually a BCC procedures. Note, as you may know, there is a provision for public rebuttal of an applicant's misstatement of fact during their own rebuttal. I don't know if that's widely known. It is documented in the procedures, but as the procedures go, during applicant rebuttal, if they misstate any fact, there is an opportunity for the public to come up and not to debate, not to comment, but to rebut the facts. I actually didn't know that until recently when I was combing through those procedures. And I think it's a really important matter because it speaks to the integrity, if you will, of this hearing and the opportunity to make sure that everything that is said is above board. And so my one ask is, I love that is in the procedures. I would ask that perhaps we think about calling that out in a very thoughtful way so that people are aware that that's an option. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Hines, interlocal agreement in conversion, I believe, attorney's fees.
Barbara Hines, Holmes Beach. The first thing I'd like to address you about is there's an interlocal agreement that will be coming to your desk from Sarasota. What this is doing, or purports to be doing, is after allowing a beautiful, pristine, wonderful wetland to be destroyed for Wawa and Whole Foods to do the mitigation in Manatee County. Well, the big problem with this is the property that was picked up in Manatee County is already conservation land. So basically, this is being destroyed, and there's nothing that's given in return. The mitigation isn't going to happen, and there's nothing to mitigate there. So I would like you to consider not approving this as read. The second thing is conversion, because when somebody takes something that they know is not theirs and gets rid of it or gives it to another person, that is criminal conversion. And I would urge you to reconsider, and I don't even know if reconsider is the right word, because there was no second at the last meeting, but the issue of awarding attorney fees to Commissioner DiSabatino. What happened shouldn't have happened. What happened was illegal. And as soon as an attorney, and you can check this out because it's ethics not only in Florida but in every state of the union, holds themselves out to be representing someone, whether they ever had a appearance in a case or anything else, that responsibility attaches, and when something is given to an attorney for a specific purpose, it cannot be used for any other purpose. And some things, the more you stir, the worse it smells. This is one of them, and I would urge you to think about it.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to come forward and speak on future agenda items? If so, please come forward. All right, not seeing anyone, we will close citizen comment on future agenda items. We have nothing on consent today, so we're going to move straight forward into advertised public hearings. At this time, Madam Clerk, can you,
Madam Chair,
yes.
are we allowed to comment on the comments, not regarding the new path?
Why wouldn't you comment on that as well as anything else? If you want, sure.
Okay, before we
Yeah,
start.
go ahead.
No, I appreciate them coming today and bringing the students, and they hosted a debate a week or two ago, and I attended, I watched, and I'm not running, but I watched to see the candidates, because I don't know a lot of the candidates that are running. And the questions were all provided by the students. It was amazing, the depth and breadth of the subject matter, and a lot of the candidates couldn't answer some of the questions or had a lot of trouble, and saying I need to get back with them and look into it. But and I think they were treated a little misfairly by one of the people up there that, maybe he failed to realize that these were students and children asking the questions. But nonetheless, this school is amazing, and they do such great work in the community, and you heard the students here today. And we haven't received the list of the CSAB funding as yet. It's coming forward, and I would hope that either the CSAB goes back to reconsider adding them into the budget, or we have the option to override that. And I hope that our staff gives us all the information. They spent a couple years ago developing this matrix, and for the purpose of scoring all the programs and measuring outcomes. And to hear just now that I wrote down that the outcomes were over 90 and 89, when other programs, one that's at that point that got recommended funding was not even a non-for-profit, and a lot of them scored in the 60s, 70s, 80s, got funded. So I think that we need to address that going forward. I think the matrix was a great idea, and I think that does not need to discontinue. So we need to make sure that, I think a couple years ago, they had a cutoff because they had so many really great programs. They had a cutoff, and I think the cutoff was like in the mid-'80s because there were so many really great programs. So I just wanted to, again, bring this up and thank them for coming and thank them for what they do in the community. And the students are just awesome at your school, and hopefully we can rectify this. Thank you.
Commissioner Whitmore.
And I watched it, and I actually emailed Jennifer telling her it was one of the best forums I'd heard. I didn't get a response. I'd send it to your personal, because I don't have your work one. But, and while our students were talking, I sent Sherry Courier a note and asked her just, I'm sure that we're hearing this now, and if she could update the commissioners, because there is a process, and there must be a reason, and I don't know what it is, but at least inform all the commissioners what's going on, because it's a budget thing, and we'll all be hearing about it at budget time. And that's all.
Commissioner Bussell.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to declare a point of order. In my opinion, it's premature and really unfair to start debating something that hasn't even happened yet. We haven't been briefed by the advisory board. We don't know what their reasoning is or what, if anything, that they did that was improper. So I think it's improper for us to discuss it here today.
Commissioner Bussell, I agree. Agree wholeheartedly. Commissioner Chappie,
Well,
are you going to address that?
well, I just had a request that basically what Commissioner Bussell said with regards to being briefed. We haven't been briefed yet. I want to thank the Academy for being here. That it's always great to get the kids out.
Absolutely.
It's really hands-on understanding what local government is about. You just don't get that type of education in the classroom. It is totally different from what you read in the books. So again, I appreciate what you guys coming here and listening and speaking up here, and you all did an excellent job. I do have a request, because I would like to get the same briefing or material that Commissioner DeSabatino has with regards to the CSAB board, because we haven't had an opportunity to look at it, and I know she's making a recommendation that they reconsider. So I'm assuming you have the information and you've reviewed it already to make that recommendation. So
Have
I'd
you,
like to get that information.
Commissioner, have you seen the information?
I have not seen it. I
Oh,
just talked to
okay.
people about it.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Benek.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the New Path kids there. I was one of their folks that they asked questions of. It was amazing, the research they had done. If you had seen the room, you'd see that they had all of the articles that had been published about all of the issues. These kids were very well versed. And it's right, I knew some folks would have a hard time answering the questions because they were detailed questions about things that are going on. So they did a great job, and I think they're to be commended for taking the time to look into our community issues. So I want to say thank you, too, for the hard work that you all did for that. It was kind of a long, hot night for some of us up there on the hot seat, but I think that's exactly what people should do, is put their elected officials on the hot seat and ask them tough questions. So good job.
I'm going to go next because we're going to get into commissioners repeating and talking for the second time. I just wanted to say that, you guys did a great job when you came forward to that microphone and stood there and talked to us, because I know how hard that is when you're not used to doing it. So you guys are on the right path at New Path. So I'm really excited and happy for you, and stay with it. And I'll guarantee you the next thing we're going to hear about you guys are that you are in college somewhere getting your college education, or maybe you're in a trade school and you're going to be very successful in life. So I just really appreciate you being here. Commissioner DeSabatino.
Yeah, I'll just wrap it up by saying, this is future agenda items, and that's why they came. And just having it in front of us before it gets to us, because we know once it gets to us in those budget books, it's hard to unravel unless you have a friend, and then 4 other people have to vote on it. So again, that's called future agenda items, and that will be coming before us. And I think this happened right after the debate, and I got phone calls from some people who were very upset about it. So It's a future agenda item. Thank you.
And I think that is correct. It is a future agenda item. Unfortunately, we have none of us up here been briefed, so we don't have anything that we can truly add because we don't know yet. So, but yes, future agenda items is exactly where to bring this up, and I appreciate you all being here. So,
Madam
thank you.
Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Whitmore.
as an at-large commissioner, I would appreciate it if somebody would call us once in a while. As our district commissioners, they say they get calls, but at large, we'll get broader picture things. But this is something that, as you all know, I did watch and I did comment on. So if there was any issues, it would have been nice to hear. Feel free to pick up the phone and call me. You can get my cell phone anytime you need it. Thank you.
Yeah. And Commissioner Smith is the New Path Academy commissioner.
Right, so nothing to do with districts.
Do you know about it?
No,
Oh, okay.
no.
He's your commissioner, guys.
That being said, anyone in District 5 that wants to call an at-large commissioner,
No, I think-
please do.
I think it's Chappie. I think they're,
Path is, it's on the east
It's
side
on
of
the east
26th
side of
Street.
26th Street.
All right, one last time. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak on future agenda items?
I thought you were the.
All right, we'll go ahead and close it. Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you could go ahead with the swearing in of staff and the public wishing to speak, please.
Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representations which you're about to present to this board will be truthful and accurate? The applicant is entitled to 15 minutes for presentation and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Individuals may speak for 3 minutes, and anyone representing a group or organization of 5 or more members may speak for 10 minutes. If you represent a group, please state the group you represent and provide written authority to speak on behalf of the group. When you step to the podium, please state your name and whether or not you've been sworn. Thank you.
All right, the first item is item number 3. Nicole, would you like to?
Sure. Item number 3 is a local development agreement for Longbar Point, and this will be continued to August 4th, 2016.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and ask at this point, has there been any excommunication? Commissioner Chappie?
Yeah, Madam Chair, there wasn't any, but I did want to put on the record, a Mr. Smith called the office and talked with Shirley about some questions and wanted me to call him back, and I had thought Shirley had already gotten a hold of him to let him know I couldn't talk to him, and then he called again about a half hour later, and I did pick up the phone, and he was asking about 3 and 4 and why it was going to be extended, or why it was requested to be extended, and I told him I can't talk about it, it's quasi-judicial, and couldn't have ex parte communication, and that if he needed more information to talk, maybe he could call Mr. Clegg.
All right, anyone else? Commissioner?
actually, I was on a conversation with, I believe it Barbara Angelucci last week, and just about in general, and then she asked why this was being continued, and I said, I actually don't know, and she asked me the merits of the case, and I said, I really don't know, and I'm not at liberty to discuss it, so that's all. Thank you.
Commissioners, I was just going to state for items 3 and 4 that the local development agreement for Longbar Point and the development order for parcel F are related to implementing a settlement agreement the board previously approved at a prior meeting, and the details of the stipulations are still being negotiated, so the matter has been requested by the county attorney's office to be continued to August 4th on both items.
Okay, good.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and open this to public comment. Is there anyone that would like to come forward on this item? Not seeing anyone. Public comment is closed. What's the pleasure of the board, please?
Motion to continue to August 4th.
Second. We have a motion to continue by Commissioner DeSabatino, second by Commissioner Benak. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously. All right, number 4.
Item number 4 is PDR 0332P R3 Longbar Point, Phase 1, Parcel F, and it also is to be continued to August 4th, 2016.
Same thing again. I'm going to go ahead and ask if there's been any other quasi, excuse me, I'm losing my voice here, ex parte communication. Commissioner Chappie.
Yeah, excuse me, I forgot to mention that, and I'm pretty sure it was on 3 and 4, that a gentleman that works for McClash called and asking why I was requesting it to be extended, or, continued, and I told him the same thing. Well, I just wanted to put that on the record, especially since where it came from.
I'm glad you
And
said that.
Why are you requesting it to be continued?
Yeah,
I'm not.
Are you?
I didn't think so, but I thought you should say that
Well,
for
right,
the record,
right.
but since you brought it up, okay.
And I told him or I had Shirley tell him that to call Clegg. And it's my understanding that he did.
Okay. All right, that being said, I'll go ahead and open this to public comment. Anyone like to come forward at this point? Not seeing anyone, we'll close public comment. What's the pleasure of the board?
Chair, that ditto for item 4, that was 3 from my conversation.
So is that a motion, Commissioner?
For Barbara, you mean?
No.
Sorry?
No,
For ex parte.
Right,
Oh,
3 and
gotcha.
On Barbara?
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, same thing. But ditto, motion to continue to August 4th.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner DeSabatino, second by Commissioner Benak. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously. Thank you. Number 5.
Item number 5, PDR 0439GR2, the Concessions Golf Club Helistop. The applicant has requested to be continued to September 1st, 2016.
All right, at this point, has there been any ex parte communication? Commissioner DeSabatino.
I was just at lunch with a friend who's building in concession, and she asked me about this, and I said, nope, can't talk about it, can't talk about it, that's it.
Okay. I'm going to open this to public comment. If there's anyone from the public that would like to come forward. Justin, I think this is you.
Logan Commissioners, my name is Justin Norwood, and I have been sworn in. Just one thing here, I think this is related to the topic of the concession, but perhaps a bigger ask that I have as well, which is just taking a look at the Land Development Code as it relates to Healy stops and Healy ports. And as best as I can tell, it's a portion of the code that hasn't really been revised in well over a decade since the original stipulation 30 went in for the concession to not be allowed to have a Healy stop. So it's been rather static. And one particular area, as I've kind of been going through this and getting educated on this area, looking at other counties within the state and how they address this particular topic, is to be really thoughtful not just of some of the limitations within the zoning district that's applying, but also in adjacent districts. And so you can kind of probably use your imagination and think of different adjacent property uses that probably would be inconsistent with a Healy stop or Healy port. Think of libraries, for example, perhaps botanical gardens, maybe even maybe schools for the deaf and blind. I would even argue perhaps equestrian communities might be a good example. But anyways, take a look at that. Maybe look at best practices for the way that land development codes around the state address Healy stops and Healy ports, and then build those into our own land development code. And that's it. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Justin. Anyone else from the public want to come forward on this item? All right, we will close public comment. What is the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just had a comment, and just with the comments what the citizen just said, when I'm hearing all that, I'm also thinking of emergency. Healy stops, and they go anywhere in the county if they have to pick up a patient. So I don't know what our current ordinance is, something we may want to look at, but no matter where there's a trauma, they're going to stop, and if there's an open space, they're going to go there, and just want to make sure that's in our ordinance, and that hopefully is exempt, because we do have two at both three hospitals in Manatee County where they can land for emergency, plus when there's trauma around the county, they can land anywhere. So just want to make sure I'm sure it's in our ordinance, but that could be addressed if we look at it.
Madam Chair, move to approve the item.
It's continue. It's to
Continue the item.
continue.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to continue from Commissioner Bustle, second by Commissioner Whitmore. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously.
And Madam Chair, the continuance is to September 1st, 2016, just for the record.
Number 6.
Item number 6 is Plan Amendment 1602, Ordinance 1613, county-initiated map amendment Knights Inn site. This is an adoption of a plan amendment providing for a county-initiated amendment to the future land use map to designate specific real property from IL to ROR on approximately 7.38 acres located at 2303 First Street East.
Is anyone requesting a full presentation on this?
Thank God it's happening.
All right. We'll go ahead at this point. I do have one person from the public that has signed up to speak, Bob McGrath.
Is the man here that's doing it?
You have 3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
My name is Bob McGrath, and I've been sworn in. And I'm a property owner, Knights Inn, I'm a property owner adjacent to that property. My understanding is that property is now currently zoned commercial. Is that correct? That's my understanding. And I'd like to see it remain commercial property, being right on the highway, right there. We don't need any more residential right there on the highway. I believe it will bring the property values down if you put anything residential. That was one of the proposals, that the property would possibly be rezoned to residential. I feel as though it should stay commercial as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public on this item? All right, we're going to go ahead then, close public comment at this point. I really got a little bit ahead of myself. The applicant.
It's only if
Have
we want a
anything?
presentation.
Yeah. Anything that you want to add to that?
Go ahead, Rosina.
Don't want a presentation.
No.
It's okay, she has something to say for the record.
Do we have it?
No.
Good morning, Rosina Leider by the staff, and I have been sworn. We don't have the affidavit of ownership, and we have to continue the hearing there for this case. We were waiting for the owner to bring that, but we don't have it yet.
I'm sorry, say that again. You don't have what?
The affidavit.
Oh, the affidavit.
I have bronchitis.
Yes,
sorry.
I know, I can tell. Bless your heart. Okay.
Attorney, help us.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
Got the paperwork.
You do have the paperwork?
Excuse me, Commissioner?
Yes, do we have the paperwork?
As of this morning, we do not have affidavit of ownership giving us permission to act on their behalf. So we really have no choice but to continue to August 4th, 2016.
Okay,
Okay.
Well,
and I'll be quiet.
yep. Bummer.
Commissioner Benak.
This was a county-initiated amendment. The county initiated because the request was made to the county. I actually just read the minutes because I was trying to remember how this came up, because I knew I brought it up, and I was the chair at the time, so I did not make the motion, but I did bring the issue up. And it was after a discussion that I had with Mr. Van Groff about the need for affordable housing in this area and kind of what was going on at the Knights Inn, and talking with staff, that I had brought it up to the board to ask the board if they would in fact initiate a comp plan amendment. And the board graciously made a motion, and it was seconded, and it was unanimously approved. So I guess my question is, if we have the right to initiate a comp plan amendment on a piece of property, why do we need an affidavit from the owner?
Madam Chair, if I can respond.
Yes,
Shortly
ma'am.
after that, you made that motion that day, I emailed the planning staff and said, out of overabundance of caution, it's good to get the owner's permission to change the future lands classification through an affidavit of authorization to do so. It avoids litigation down the road for the owner suing the county. But I told them that months ago, and I wasn't aware it hadn't been submitted.
And unfortunately, the gentleman that you talked to, Harvey, and I don't know how to say his last name, he doesn't own the property.
Right.
So, okay, well,
Yeah, that changes it.
and I know he was trying to buy the property. There was, at the time, and I know Robin has probably talked to him as well, at the time, there was an idea of urgency for him to be able to go forward and buy the property. He needed to have some assurances that in fact he could go forward with his project on the property. The property is designated industrial, which is prohibits,
INL.
yeah, prohibits residential. So that was the concern. We're not taking away the ability to do commercial. The change was to ROR, which is retail, office, residential. That was the change that this comp plan that we initiated was. And it really made more sense than industrial. A hotel typically, even though a hotel, which is the current use, is allowed industrial, a hotel is also allowed in ROR. But I don't disagree with staff's position of, letting the property owner know. I certainly would not want to do something that the property owner was not in favor of. So I don't have any problem, I guess, hearing that in agreeing to this continuance. How long of a continuance are we talking about?
August 4th is the next available.
Does anyone know whether or not that has a significant impact on what's happening here?
Really, without the straight rezone and the urban cores update, the ROR doesn't give him any entitlements today to bring the property into compliance. So they this had to be the first step of many, but the urban cores amendment isn't coming before you till the late summer, fall.
Okay. Has anyone had any discussions with the property owner?
Madam Chair, yeah, that's what I want to say.
We reached out to them last week, excuse me, and they've hired a planner to represent them, and we were communicating with them the last few days.
Good. All right.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Commissioner Whitmore.
Well, why don't we do this? I've done it in my previous world. Why can't we move to approve this pending the affidavit that we presented to the county within 90 days? And then we're settled, we're all set. If we don't get it in 90 days and it comes back before us, but we all know that this is going to happen, and it's just a somatic thing of getting the paperwork. Why don't we do that?
Commissioners, that's a motion.
Well, we probably got to see if everybody else, but I've done it in my previous world, and the
Ms.
attorneys
Shane,
have
can
all
you
said it was okay.
advise on that, please?
This is a council plan amendment, small-scale amendment. It's governed by the state statute. The effective date of the small-scale amendment is 31 days after adoption, unless the amendment is challenged.
31 days then.
We can't change the effective date.
Right.
31
If you
days.
pass it today, it's going to take effect in 31 days, regardless of whether we get an affidavit or not.
Okay.
Okay. That's a motion. I second that motion, Madam Chair.
So the advice is not to have that contingency in the motion, because the effective date of this ordinance, because the comprehensive plan amendment is governed by state statute. But you're not legally precluded from changing future land use classification of someone's property without the consent. But I'm a bit surprised that staff didn't notify me a little bit before the meeting. I could have been more prepared.
Commissioner
But-
Whitmore, did you want to keep your motion?
I,
Has a second.
yes, because I think all this can happen in 30 days, and I think our staff and our attorney will make sure, and if it doesn't, it won't. But from what we've all heard, there is a major time constraints on this, and I would hate to stop just because we're waiting, unfortunately, for a piece of paper. And so I would keep the motion to see if it passes.
Okay, we have several more commissioners on the board. Commissioner DeSabatino.
Yes. Well, it did go to Planning Commission, correct? And they voted on it? Is that correct?
The Plan Commission passes a recommended motion to adopt.
But they didn't have the affidavit either.
Nope.
Well, it wasn't stated in the record that that was an issue at that time, so they weren't aware of that.
So we should have been made aware of that before the Planning Commission voted. And I don't know the exact date of Harvey's contract. I know he's postponed it 1 or 2 times. I thought it was the end of this month that he was to go to closing. He was just trying to do the right thing, because currently it is operating as a residence. I mean, U.S. government has contracts with them to provide housing for certain individuals. So he was trying to do the right thing. So if our attorney says that we can pass it with the caveat that we get the paperwork from the owner within the next 31 days, I would second that motion.
I'm just saying, there's no caveat. If you adopt the ordinance
don't
today
need to.
under
It's
state
31 days.
statute, it will take effect in 31 days unless the legal challenge is filed.
Okay.
The county is more open to legal challenge from the property owner if you don't have them consenting in writing to the change.
Okay.
It's just my duty to bring that up. I'm not saying there's going to be a legal challenge, and you certainly have legal authority to pass the ordinance today if you should do so.
If I may, so I removed my caveat, and it's actually to the owner's advantage. We've been doing all this in his behalf, and he hasn't had to pay the fees, which would be several thousands of dollars, so. True. That's it.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, you finished?
Thank you.
Commissioner Bustle.
Well, I think I've already what I was going to say has already been said. I agree, in the interest of expediency, we need to move this ahead contingent upon Mr. Van Groff providing the proper paperwork.
It's not Mr. Van Groff, it's the owner.
Well,
He doesn't own it yet. He
yeah,
has a,
but Mr. Van Groff is the principal. He's the applicant.
He's the one that we're doing it for.
right.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could our Assistant County Attorney give us a legal motion dealing with this issue? And my concern also is that it may have been a communication problem between the applicant and individuals if it went before the Planning and Zoning Board and they didn't have one in file, and maybe they're under some impression that they didn't have to have it here today. And I understand that staff say they spoke last week sometime, but you know, communication is everything. And my concern is that, and I think it's been stated here,
Continue to June 24th.
what we have there, in my opinion, is not acceptable to me. And the fact of that whole corridor down there, all the way north from that section. I talked to a gentleman who was talking to me about putting a hotel there, 200-room hotel, but he drove a mile in any direction and said, you need to clean up the community. So people are not running to invest in that area. So when you have someone that's willing to come into that community and invest, and I've had phone calls from Mr. Firkins and all of them, I was put that on the record. The basically was in support, and they was concerned about cleaning up the neighborhood. His representative called me concerning that, and in their opinion, there's a start. He may even be an investor, I don't know. I'm just saying I want to put that on the record before we move forward. So certainly this is a start of something in that area. I spoke to Mr. Carl Shepard of Red Barn, dealing with this issue. So people are just not running in that area to invest. And so I'm going to support a legal motion, Madam Chair.
The other option, Madam Chair, consulting with staff, is continue the public hearing to June 21st and put a written letter to the property owner. This has been continued because you have failed to submit this requested document. Here's your deadline, submit it prior to June 21st, and then you're giving them a chance to submit it.
June 21st?
Mm-hmm.
It's a board meeting June 21st. I'm just trying to move it up.
That would be the smarter thing to do. Commissioner Benak?
Yeah, I think what you have is a property owner who has a contract for sale that isn't closed yet. He's wondering if this is good for him, this change. If he's hired a planner to try to analyze this, I don't feel comfortable. As much as I want to help Mr. Van Groff move forward with his affordable housing project, I don't feel comfortable if the property owner hasn't had time, for whatever reason, to understand the ramifications of this change.
Exactly.
I think it's okay for him as far as keeping his hotel there. And as Robin mentioned, the fact of the matter, it has been used as housing. My understanding is it's used for farm worker housing today, with the blessing of the federal government. That's what I've heard. So, we have a situation there that we're trying to work with someone who's trying to clean it up and make a difference. But I do feel a little bit uncomfortable hearing that very recently, the property owner has said, I'm not sure if this is going to be the best for me. And so I like the idea of a continuance to give time to clear this up. And I was going to ask, even if we adopted it today, we could at our next meeting reconsider, I guess, if for any reason we heard something. I mean, I don't want to send the message that we're in any way trying to stop this, but maybe just make sure that we have all the, I's dotted and T's crossed, I guess, is how I feel about it.
I think the better course is continue to June 21st.
Okay. That being said, I haven't spoken on this issue yet, so I'm going to go next before all the commissioners repeat themselves. I will not be supporting the motion on the floor, and the reason is because I think that I would feel more comfortable continuing this until June the 21st, because I'd like to hear you know, as to what's going on with this and how he wants to move forward. I'm hoping that Harvey continues to move this forward. I don't think any of us want to see this project go away. We want to make sure that it happens. But that being said, we need to also wait and speak to him. And so I will not support the motion that's on the floor at this point. Commissioner Chappie.
Yeah, that's why I pushed my button. I think the best thing to do would be to continue. We do have a meeting on the 7th. I think we can continue it to the 7th.
Yeah.
And if we still don't have anything, but it looks like we're going to have something, then to the 21st. But I am fully in support of doing this, but I don't see how it would be a good thing to approve something when we do not have the owner of the property in agreement officially in writing. I can't do that.
Ms. County Attorney, is that time frame sufficient?
I have no idea. Nicole, do you have any idea? I
All we
thought
have to
June
do is say
21st is
put it
more
on the
time.
agenda.
They're trying to do it next Tuesday, and today's Thursday.
Yeah, agenda packets would be prepared today and closed tomorrow. I can't confirm that the 7th would work.
Here's mine.
Put it on
I
there.
think
Just
probably
move
the
it over.
21st. We can always add it or remove it, you know. Commissioner Whitmore.
Well, here's my deal. Right now, if we pass a motion today that's recommended, because we don't want to do a stipulation, we're protecting the current owner, because right now, he's using it as a residential.
Has been.
By the federal government, and why aren't we sending code enforcement out? Because it's not allowed. So, I mean, to me, you know, why hasn't code enforcement, why haven't we been aware that this is being used as residential? So to me, this would be at least a step today to protect this person, and then if he decides he's not going to sell it to Harvey, he can continue doing what he's doing now. So I will still continue it with, and I'm glad I didn't know this, that we were they were renting it as residential and the federal government's paying for it. And yet we're turning a blind eye and code enforcement isn't enforcing what it's zoned for. So to me, I would prefer to pass this today. And like Betsy had mentioned a few minutes ago, we could reconsider if, of course, if we want to protect the guy that's renting it now, we do want to make this residential. So I still support the motion.
I still second it.
Commissioner DeSabatino, did you have anything else to add?
Yes, I appreciate what Commissioner Whitmore has gone to bat for this situation. I drove by yesterday, and just like Commissioner Smith said about cleaning up the area, I believe that the property on 26th Street at the northeast corner, I believe, right near him, just south of this property, is vacant. And so that doesn't bode well. But, you know, kudos to John Barnott and his staff for working with Harvey and his team. I had this written down from the get-go. And they've really gone out of their way to work with Harvey. Harvey had to extend his contracts to work with us for providing affordable workforce housing in a community. I think the fee is going to be $625 a month, all inclusive. And, you know, we just want, you know, I'm on the record to support him. I know we're all supporting him. And if the attorney says, if our attorney says that we could do this, then I'm all in support of this. Just for the record, I sent an email to County Administrator, I believe last week, the week before. I will not be able to be in attendance on the 21st. I have a family obligation, and so if we could continue it anyway, just put it on the agenda for the 7th. I'd appreciate that. At least it'll give them some urgency to get this letter, and you know, I just want to make sure that we're working 100% for Harvey, and I know he loves working in Manatee County and gets a little pushback from Sarasota, so I don't want this to be any pushback. So, you know, I'm all in favor of the motion right now.
Because protecting the other guy.
Yeah.
Nicole, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, you have to love technology. I just received an email that packets are being prepared today, so it could be put on the 7th.
Good. All right. Commissioner Bussell?
Yeah, I still support the motion. Nobody has said that the motion is improper or illegal.
I support the motion.
And therefore, I think we should press ahead. boldness is an issue in this point, at this point, and time is an issue. If the paperwork doesn't come forward, then the motion takes care of that, you know, so it'll fail. But let's vote on it.
I'd like to call the question.
Second.
All right, the question's been called by Commissioner Whitmore, second by DeSabatino. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay. You're getting incorrect statements up here that need
How
to be
many
corrected.
nays? How many ayes and nays?
I have a comment.
Raise your hands, please, if it was a nay. And we still have commissioners on the board.
The question's been called in second.
Yeah,
How
you
many
can't
nays?
discuss.
Right, but we have a right to comment with regards to how our votes went.
That's right.
Right.
What was the vote? Excuse me, I don't know. Was it 4-3 to pass it?
4 to
Two voted
3.
against it.
No.
No, we're calling the question.
There were 3 of us.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
In point of order, do we get to say why we voted against the call to question?
Yeah.
Oh, just to call the
Yes.
question?
Oh, great.
No, they want to know, can they explain why
Why
they?
they call the question? I don't think we've done that before.
Done what?
No, you can't.
You can't
You
debate.
can't debate that once it's
before the
called in second and passed.
Does anybody have their book?
We've done that before.
Yeah, what? I don't know what you're
You
talking
can't
about.
discuss it anymore.
Discuss what?
Why you're voting?
Why we voted to not call the question?
Right.
If the call the question passed, then you're back to the motion on the floor, which is the motion to
No
adopt.
discussion.
I understand.
We have a motion on the floor. We still have commissioners that would like to speak, but at this point, we have to vote on the motion. Madam Clerk, can you repeat the motion?
The motion on the floor is to approve this item pending the affidavit be presented to the county in 90 days.
Nope, that wasn't the motion. We changed it. I'm sorry. We voted to approve the recommended motion. And it was seconded by,
Commissioner DeSabatino.
I'm sorry, that wasn't clear on the record.
Well, that's why, that's what I thought. So, Commissioner Whitmore, would you please repeat your motion?
I move to approve the recommended motion.
All right, so we still have the motion on the floor by Commissioner Whitmore, second by Commissioner DeSabatino. Madam Clerk, would you please repeat that?
The recommended motion is based upon the evidence presented, comments made at the public hearing, the technical support documents, the action of the Planning Commission, and finding the request to be consistent with the Community Planning Act as codified in applicable portions of Chapter 163, Part 2, Florida statutes, and the Manatee County Comprehensive Plan. Commissioner Whitmore moved to approve the plan amendment, PA-16-02, as recommended by the Planning Commissioner, by the Planning Commission, and the motion was seconded by Commissioner DeSabatino.
All in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. It is approved 4 to 3, obviously. Now we can talk. Commissioner Smith, you're on the board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I think my colleagues had stated this properly, that the last several years, this has been used as residential consistently. And there are some issues in that community over there that has been driven, in my opinion, from that location was taking place. And so those are the issues that I would like to address by moving forward. Certainly with this investment, potential investment in that area, would empower people in that entire block. In the 26th Street that you mentioned, that's exactly where a person wanted to put a hotel until he started driving around 26th Street and said, there's no way in the world I can invest money in this area until it's cleaned up. So I think this is a start. There's been no change in that block. And so when we have someone that's willing to come and invest and basically take a chance to do something that I believe is very great for that area, I must support that, because we already have residential there. And some of the individuals there, with all due respect, are in that community doing some things, in my opinion, that they shouldn't be doing. And it's not going to get better unless we move forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And it should be noted that, from what I've heard here on the board, everyone wants it to happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Commissioner Chappie.
Yeah, the reason I voted the way I did was for the basic reasons what's before us today. We're dealing with a land use meeting, an amendment to the future land use map. And that's what's before us. I think it's a little bit of a red herring to talk about all this other stuff going on around there when we're asked to deal with the future land use map. We all agree this needs to happen. We want it to happen. But as far as I know, and everything presented to us today, we don't have the owner of the property in agreement with it.
Exactly.
And that's where I have a problem doing this. I hope he is in agreement. It seems like the greatest thing since sliced bread. This area really needs it. But again, this is a land use map, and this is to be ruled on with regards to a future land use map amendment change.
Well
You need to
said.
have the owner
Happy.
of the property, I would hope, in agreement. He may change his mind.
Well said. Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, and that is the sole reason that I voted the way I did. I certainly thought it could have been continued to June 7th or June 21st. I heard my other commissioners say that, but then they voted for the motion to adopt it today.
Exactly.
And then I heard Commissioner Bussell say it was contingent if he didn't provide the affidavit. Nope, not contingent. No affidavit is needed in this case. It takes effect.
Right.
We have done this as a county-initiated amendment. We did it in good faith, that this is what is best for the property. Nobody here said that that was not what they wanted. But I have a problem with due process here, because today is the first time that I've heard that the property owner is not, we have no proof anyways, that he's on board with this change. I assumed that going forward, since Mr. Vengroff had it under contract, that there would not be an issue. But today, we were told that the property owner has not consented to this. And where, yes, it's not necessarily required because it's county initiated, I have a very uncomfortable feeling about moving forward with something that the property owner has absolutely no control at this point on what's going on. And that's my perception at this point. So that's the sole reason I voted against the plan amendment that I basically initiated. I still think the plan amendment is a very good thing, but I want to make sure due process is addressed here. And I don't see any reason why we couldn't have continued this to June 7th or June 21st to make sure that that was taken care of. So that's why I voted against it.
If I may ask staff, when did we realize that we didn't have an affidavit on this? What happened?
We have an affidavit when they filed their original application back in February, but from Harvey Vengroff, not from the owners. And it wasn't realized until about 10 days ago that he still hasn't closed on the property.
Well, we
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Commissioners, I know we still have more on the board. The vote it's done. I mean, are we just going to sit here and repeat, or is it new information?
No, it's
Commissioner
new
Bussell.
information. Madam Chair, the more we discuss this, the more clouded it became, and the motion that was passed was the recommended motion, but it wasn't the motion that I was in favor of. My motion, or my position is that we need that contingency, because if we don't get the proper paperwork, then what we've done may not be proper or legal. So I would like to make a motion that we modify the motion that we pass to include a contingency that says that it's dependent on the staff receiving the proper paperwork from the applicant to comply with the law and with the requirements of the staff.
I'll second it, or I'll
Point
lose
of
my
order.
fourth
Madam Chair.
go. I seconded it.
I've
Can you
asked for
repeat
point
that
of
back?
Excuse me?
order. I'm just telling you.
Telling me what? I can't hear you.
I said
Everybody
point
else
of
is
order.
talking.
When somebody says a point
Yeah.
of order, you immediately go to the point of order.
We didn't hear you.
I couldn't
I
either.
couldn't
You
hear.
heard me.
Barely. Commissioner Bussell, are you asking for a motion for a reconsideration? Is that what we're doing here, sir?
I guess so, if that's what I have to do in order to include that contingency.
All right, Madam Clerk, do you have that motion for
Move to
reconsideration?
I will second his motion to
I
reconsider.
already seconded it, but
You
okay.
seconded
That
his
wasn't
other
the
motion.
motion that
No,
you
just-
reconsidered. So we have a motion to reconsider by Commissioner Bussell, second by Commissioner Chappie.
Question.
I have on the board too.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
Before all this, Nicole had indicated that we had the affidavit from Harvey we've known all along he is not the owner. That's why Mr. Barnott and his team have gone to bat, because Harvey didn't own it. We didn't want to have him buy something that he couldn't utilize for another purpose, or for the purpose that he wanted. But so we've known all along Harvey doesn't own it, but he has a contingency contract, and so that's why we decided that we would initiate this and spend the money. So that was kind of confusing how I think it was stated, I guess maybe the clerk can read back what it was, but I believe we've known all along that's why the county has done this from the get-go. So do we have any emails or correspondence from the owner in all of this, between he and Mr. Barnott and he and staff? Anything talking to the owner, any letters, anything?
Madam Chair, am I respond?
Thank you, yes.
Emails are not worth the paper they're written on. In this world, you have to have the proper form signed and notarized. This is a county-shade amendment concept plan. You have the legal authority to do it. We can't put contingencies on the effective date in the motion because the Growth Management Act specifies certain items about effective date of concept plan amendments. And it says it's effective 31 days from today unless there's a legal challenge filed. That's the only contingency we can have on effective dates.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
That's why I recommend the continuance to either any date you pick or just vote on it. We can't put the contingency in there.
Okay, well, I move to call the question.
Second.
We call the question by Commissioner Benek, second by Commissioner DeSabatino. All in favor?
Question, I'm on the board.
Well, it's called the
matter.
question. Doesn't matter. That's what you did before.
My button is punched before they call the question.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay.
And can you read the motion?
Madam Clerk, can you read the motion, please? Thank you, Commissioner DeSabatino.
Here we go. It was just to reconsider.
Commissioners, Commissioner Bussell moved to add that contingency and then a motion to reconsider. So I'm unsure of.
That's why I'm asking you. I
Madam
wanted to make
Chair,
sure it was very clear.
First, you have to vote on the motion to reconsider.
Right.
If that passes, then you can vote on the main motion.
Okay.
Which we did.
I wanted my question before we reconsider.
But do we have,
we have to
approval
vote.
to call the
I
question?
withdraw my
On the motion to
second.
reconsider.
Excuse me, can you
Oh my
repeat the
God.
motion,
You
please?
guys, please.
The motion to,
Reconsider.
Commissioner Bussell moved to reconsider the motion for PA-16-02, which was approved as recommended by staff, and Commissioner Chappie seconded that motion.
I want to change.
So,
I want to change my
we-
vote on that to no.
Excuse me, we have a motion on the
Haven't
floor.
voted yet.
All in favor of the reconsideration, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay.
Nay.
You'll never get it.
So it is approved, 6-1.
I'd like to make a motion.
Well, I'm on the board. I'm trying to.
In just a moment.
I'd like to make.
I'm
a
making
mo-
help you with these motions if I say what I need to say.
5-minute recess.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the recommended motion with the stipulation for 31 days.
That's what you did before.
No, I didn't. I did not do the 31 days.
Is there a second
I'm going to
to
second that motion
Whitmore's
because my
motion?
understanding is that the assistant county attorney said we could do that, if I'm correct about that.
Yeah, it's already in the ordinance.
Right,
If you
so
just
that's
pass-
what's in there.
Just pass the recommended motion, the ordinance becomes effective within 31 days from today, unless legal challenge is filed.
Commissioner Smith,
Have a
did you have anything
stipulation.
else?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, as you recall, the property owner today, who actually owned the property, is in violation.
Right.
That doesn't have anything to do with it.
I know that,
Do with
Mayor,
that.
let me finish my thoughts. Y'all want to cut me off when I go to talking. I'm trying to lay out a foundation here. Is in violation. Mr. Van Groff, as you recall, his son stated right here during the housing that he may be leaving the country. So we don't even know if he's here. So we may have to reach out to his son. He stated right here that his father may be leaving for the summer, and so we don't know where he's at.
That's not the owner.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but my point is that I agree with most of you, the commissioner, we've got to do something regardless. You know, to move this thing forward, in my opinion. So I just want to put that on the record from that standpoint. And I think you already agreed from the standpoint that we was already aware of the condition of the property and what was taking place of ownership. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Chappie.
It still doesn't take away from the fact what we're here to decide, and it is a future land use map amendment. And we do not have in writing
Right.
documentation, certified, whatever, from the owner of the piece of property. You know, we can talk about all the other stuff that we want to happen there, and we're all in agreement on it. We really are. But why, you know, what?
Attorney Turner's clarified that.
Commissioner Smith, wait your turn, please, sir.
You know, I can't go forward with this without the owner agreeing to it. And I think it would be more prudent of us just to continue until 1 week. 1 week. That's all we're talking about. To the
Which
7th.
owner are you referring to, Commissioner?
Commissioner
There's
Smith,
only one
can you
owner of the
wait
property.
and let him speak, sir?
Yeah.
Commissioner Benak.
Harvey Bengroff does not own the property. Harvey's trying to buy the property. This was what he needed to feel comfortable buying the property. But that doesn't take away the fact that the property owner has, at this point, if he's hiring a planner to look into it, is not entirely comfortable with this whole deal. So what we're doing, if we approve this motion, is requiring the property owner to file a challenge to the comp plan amendment. That's what would be the right process. And they have that due process. All we're saying is we're following state law. If we approve this today, then the property owner would have to file a challenge to stop this. And I think, as we all mostly know nowadays, it's not all that hard to file challenges to comp plan amendments. But it will cause a whole lot of work for us to have to do that. The alternative is to wait a couple of weeks and see if the property owner is okay with this, or a week. I don't understand why. I understand we all want to show support for what Harvey's doing. Nobody up here is backing away from that. This is a little blip in the process. The property owner, from my position, I'd like to know the property owner is comfortable with this change. I would feel more comfortable voting for it if the property owner understood what it meant. But if we go ahead and pass this motion, then the property owner will have to file a challenge to the comp plan amendment, because that's the law, 31 days.
Yep.
I'm trying to help the county attorney, because apparently
Nobody's
hearing what
Yeah.
she's saying, is that, in fact, that is the law, and that's all we're doing, is approving a comp plan amendment with the allowable 31-day challenge, which applies to any comp plan amendment, this one included. The alternative motion would be to have a continuance to June 7th, and then possibly June 21st if there couldn't be contact with the property owner that quickly. That's what I would be more comfortable with.
Commissioners, I think what I'm seeing here is that we're putting the cart before the horse. We need to make sure that the owner of the property is in agreement with what is transpiring here, and we don't know that. A continuation would truly seem to be the better way to go on this. We all want to see this project happen, and we want to see it happen as quickly as possible. But to do something that truly we don't know is appropriate, it's a little far-fetched. Commissioner Whitmore.
I wouldn't know Harvey again if he was here in the audience. I met him that one time. I actually asked Robin if he was in here in the audience today. I'm totally not even looking at it that way. I'm looking at it, the current landowner who is actually running this as residential for how many years now? So why would he protest this? Because we just made what he's doing legal. And, okay, and if we decide not to do this today, that's why I agree. I mean, if I have to get the 4 votes, and if Larry wants it, my motion, even though we know it's part of it, to say 31 days in it to get his vote, that's why I changed my motion. But if we don't vote on this today, Why isn't our code enforcement office out there?
That's right.
No, first of
Amen.
all,
I mean, it's true. It's zoned, not residential, and it's been run as residential, which I didn't even know. I still thought it was a hotel. So, that's why I put the 31 days in the motion, Commissioner Bustle.
commissioners, we can all sit back and speculate. And it seems like being up on this dais in every meeting almost, we hear a lot of speculation. But we can't work on speculation. We cannot make decisions based on speculation.
Facts.
I just want to keep that in mind. Ms. Shank, did you have anything to add?
Just that this very discussion is why I emailed staff the day you made the motion to initiate the council plan amendment to get the property owner authorization.
Right.
Removes any doubt of any future legal challenge. And our job as county attorneys is to keep you out of court as much as possible, avoid Burt Harris Act takings claims, avoid paying attorney's fees the other side. Folks, if you got a checkbook and you're ready to write some checks, then you can take more risks.
Or code enforcement, he's going to have to write some checks.
You know what? I don't think so, Commissioner Whitmore.
Well, it's not a lot.
Commissioner Smith, thank you.
You know, Madam Chair, this is one of the most ludicrous issues I've ever seen. Now we're concerned about a person who's in violation of the ordinance that we have coming down here to sue us or question what we're doing, knowing that he's in violation, people living there, running all through the community at night, raving havoc in the community, and we sitting here prolonging something because someone may come down here and say, well, I don't want to change, which they're in violation. You and I know we can order code enforcement to go down there tonight
Shut them down.
and shut them down. So why are we playing?
What you want to do?
Why are we playing games
Right.
with this issue when he can't come before us because he is in violation? What is he going to object to? He will object to closing his own business down if he even show up. You know that.
All right,
Is there a
we have
motion on the
one,
floor?
there is a motion.
What is the
Madam Clerk, would you repeat that motion, please?
Poor Madam Clerk.
Bless her heart.
You earned your paycheck today.
Bonus.
I bet you need a break, don't you?
Commissioners, the motion on the floor is to approve the recommended motion with the stipulation for 31 days.
And that, correct me if I'm wrong, it was made by Commissioner Whitmore and seconded by DeSabatino. Commissioner?
Actually, I have down Commissioner Smith.
I second that
Oh, I'm
motion.
sorry. Okay. That was probably the motion before.
Or the one after. Or the future motion.
Commissioner Chapman?
I will just state this.
Right,
Commissioner
it was-
Smith and myself, we are in 100% agreement. This is one of the most ludicrous discussions that we've ever had, but we're
I
coming
agree.
at it from
A lot
opposite
more.
ends. I respect your position, and I hear what you're
Absolutely.
saying and the rest of the commission, but
Thank you.
the bottom line is, we're looking at making a future land use map amendment change on a piece of property, and we don't really know whether the owner of the property is in full agreement or whether he's really trying to assess his options. We just don't know that. I mean, you can talk all we want about the other violations, or what alleged violations that's going on there, but I don't think that's our job right now at this land use meeting. Our land use meeting is to move this thing forward so that we can come out with a positive outcome for that surrounding community, for Manatee County. And I think by a motion that could be put on the floor after this one to continue till the 7th would be the best option that we have here at this time.
I have one comment.
You
and I'm
have to
done.
wait your turn. The cart does not move well in front of the horse. Commissioner Benak.
So we have a motion that basically is just for approval of the recommended motion again, because the 31-day appeal period is inherent in the state law. There's no extra 31 condition here. So I understand that that's the way it was read, but basically all we're talking about is approving the motion again. And again, I will vote against it for the sole purpose that John so eloquently just stated, that we have not heard from the property owner. Even though the property owner, we've heard a lot about the violations that are taking place here. I don't know if they're still taking place. I heard this a long time ago, that there were farm workers living there. For all I know, it's changed. I don't know that. We've not been to code enforcement. We've not had any action on this. I don't really know that that's in fact the case. still today, because I don't hang out at this hotel, and I have not hung out looking at the people that are living there or watching them. So I,
Uh-oh.
Ooh, you get a demo, you could
$5. $5.
So you're done talking.
so that's why I would vote against the motion.
All right, Commissioner Smith?
My concern is that we're in a public forum, and it's been brought to our attention that it's not even zoned for what it is today. And all the legal stuff we're talking about in suit, if something happens today on that property, Manatee County is liable because we allowed them to remain there without rezoning.
And we know it's been going on.
It's been going on, so it's to our attention. So we have a facility that's operating, and it shouldn't be operating. So if a fire, God forbid, or something happens, and we continue to allow people to live there without us doing the proper due diligence, I think we just as liable.
Commissioners, y'all have known about this. This is not new information. Anyway, I have turned over the gavel.
Well, we
I'm
have a
going to
motion.
call the question.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to call a question and a second by Commissioner Whitmore. The motion was made by Baugh. All those in favor of calling the question signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No opposition. Motion to call the question has passed unanimously. Could you read the motion on the floor?
Phew.
Or Quintana.
Commissioners, the motion on the floor is to approve the recommended motion with a stipulation of 31 days.
Thank you.
And
All
Madam-
those, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to state the county has absolutely no liability for the operation of a facility on that property, whether it's in violation of code or not. The Compass Plan Amendment being passed does not make any existing use more lawful tomorrow than it was yesterday.
All
There's no
those-
need of
all those in
rezoning
favor
and
of-
other additional development
Thank you.
approvals.
My point is,
All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by raising your hand.
It's just to call the question.
Got more.
No, we already called the question. All those
This is
in
the
favor.
motion.
no, you just voted for it, it's
No, I'm
6-1.
sorry, I misunderstood the
Can't
motion.
take it back.
That's why I'm looking at you like,
No,
We already did that.
it's voted.
Read the motion again so we're all clear, since there is some
Sorry,
confusion.
I was
This
confused.
is insane.
how can you not be?
And usually I can trust you, Beth.
Commissioners, the motion on the floor is to approve the recommended motion with a 31-day stipulation,
She knows it by
or
heart.
stipulation for 31 days.
All those in favor of that motion,
Which was the
Please.
same as the other motion.
raise your hand.
You didn't look this way, John. Okay.
Do you understand what motion you're voting for?
Yeah.
Voted for it all over again.
31 days, he does.
Okay.
All right,
All right, let's move on.
yeah.
So the
we'll
motion
move on.
passed.
Motion passed, it's done. Don't, hey,
I love everybody, you know that. Sorry, I just didn't agree on that one. Okay.
let's hope it doesn't come back to kick us in the butt.
One
does.
last question.
Commissioner
let's keep
DeSabatini,
moving.
you don't have to wait, we have other people on the board.
Okay.
Commissioner Bussell?
Let's keep it going.
I think I'll just withdraw.
Okay, Commissioner Chappie?
Yeah.
All right, now Commissioner DeSabatini.
I just want to know from staff, when we knew that we didn't have the affidavit, was it just this morning, or was it yesterday, or could we have prevented all this by knowing this in advance and preventing all this craziness for the last hour?
It was approximately 10 days ago it was brought to my attention.
So 10 days ago, we could
Wait,
have pulled
she's
this.
not done. She was trying to contact, right?
Harvey, his son, and other staff members from their business was on the email. They've been communicating with us that they're working on it. And they are the ones that hired the planner, not the underlining landowner. And it's Harvey who's
figured.
running the business, not the underlining landowner.
Okay.
All right, well, let's move on, shall we? Number 7.
All right.
Nicole, can you help us with that, please?
Number 7 is PDC 8701 PR5, Marvard Trading Limited. This is an amending ordinance PDC 8701 PR4 to extend the expiration date for a period of 2 years for a preliminary site plan. No other changes are being approved with this request. The site is located at the southeast corner of State Road 70 and Ranch Lake Boulevard.
Does anyone, this is a quasi judicial, has there been any ex parte communication? Not seeing any, we'll go ahead and move forward. Does anyone want a full presentation?
Just extending it, no.
All right. With that being said, is there anything else, staff, that you'd like to add on this?
No, ma'am.
Okay, good. How about the applicant? This is not open to public comment at this point. I'm asking if the applicant has anything that they'd like to add.
Madam Chair, any
Have to come-
testimony has to be under oath at the
Yes.
mic.
Are you the applicant?
Need to come up here.
We can't hear you, I'm sorry.
You
Have
need
you
to come
been
up here.
sworn? Just a moment. Have you been sworn, ma'am? You were, okay.
We didn't ask for president.
Is there anything, ma'am, that you'd like to add? If so, let us have your name and that you've been sworn, please.
My name is Kirsten Bayer. I'm an attorney, and I represent the applicant Marva Trading Limited.
Okay.
And I have been sworn.
Okay.
And I do not have anything to add.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, at this point, I'm going to open this to public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to come forward on this item? Not seeing anyone, we will close public comment.
Madam Chair, I move the recommended motion.
Second. We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Bussell, second by Commissioner Benak. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously. Thank you. All right, number 8.
Number 8, PDR 0411R, PR3, Grayhawk Landing West. This is amending ordinance number PDR 0411R, PR2 to Grayhawk Landing West to extend the expiration date for a preliminary site plan for 501 residential unit subdivision from May 29th, 2017 to November 2nd, 2018. No other changes are being approved with this request. The site is approximately 1,100 feet north of State Road 64.
All right, again, this is quasi-judicial. Any ex parte communication?
No.
Okay, moving forward. Staff, do you have anything you'd like to?
The only thing I would like to add is that under the Public Works item number 12, that is for the extension of the CLOS for this project as well, and the extension date for the preliminary site plan is matching the CLOS request.
Okay. All right, and the applicant, is there anything, is the applicant here? Okay. Nothing, all right. All right, we'll go ahead and open this to public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to come forward? Not seeing anyone, we'll close public comment. What is the pleasure of the board?
Move recommended motion.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Benak, second by Commissioner DiSabatino. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously. All right, next, number 9.
We actually have to hear item number 11
Oh,
before
okay.
item number 9.
Okay.
So the introduction to number 11 is adoption of resolution R16061, a resolution vacating a portion of road right-of-way at Broadway and Tennessee.
And Madam Chair, I wanted to point out the applicants requested a half hour to present for the street vacation and a half hour to present for the Oasis zoning ordinance. I was going to suggest the board could hear both of those items together and just vote separately, vote on the street vacation first and then the rezone.
Is everyone okay with that? All right. All right, go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I'm Larry Decker from Property Acquisition. I've been sworn. I'd like to begin by presenting an amended resolution. There was a change made to represent today's date on it. I believe the applicants have representation here who would probably like to speak.
So why don't we go ahead and open the other one too?
You know, at this time, since we have to vote on number 11, but we're also going to be hearing number 9. That is quasi-judicial. So, Nicole, can we go ahead and?
Sure. Item number 9, PDR 1513 ZP, Manasara Corp., Tennessee Street Property LLC, the Oasis at University. This is a rezone of approximately 25.5 acres of land on the north side of University between Florida Street and the SCL Railroad and south of Broadway Avenue from PDC and LM to PDR, and approving a preliminary site plan for 324 multifamily residential units.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and ask at this point, has there been, I think I did that before, any ex parte communication?
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
It has nothing to do with this property, but a resident in nearby sent me some emails regarding rooftops in a nearby community that are going up under construction already, not pertaining to this, but have different rooftops than the area. And so she wanted me to ride around and see, and I haven't done that as yet.
Doesn't have anything to do with this item?
And it might have something to do with it later. I'm going to ask a question about rooftops, that's all.
All right. Go ahead.
Regarding that matter, I defer to someone in planning.
You
to-
speak
Well,
up, sir.
I know,
I apologize. I'd prefer to defer to someone in planning regarding that issue.
Well, let's go ahead
no,
with
I'm
the
just-
vacation at this
Okay.
point. I just wanted to make sure we had both items open together.
The applicant has requested vacating a portion of road right-of-way at Broadway and Tennessee Ave.
Get
We
closer
can-
to
we
that,
can-
Matt.
we cannot
Mike,
hear
your
you.
voice is just
I'm
not
sorry.
picking it
Or
up.
we need hearing aids, sorry.
right.
Or
I think I
Chris could help us out.
Yeah, Chris,
There
is
you go.
turn it up.
There we go.
Okay.
Chris helped us out.
Today before you, the applicant has made a resolution vacating a portion of road right-of-way at Broadway and Tennessee Avenue. Purpose of the request is to vacate portions of unimproved roads so the applicants can close on a contract with the developer to accommodate development plans submitted for the adjacent parcel located north, and it will be developed as an apartment complex.
All right. Sorry, I got behind. Help me out 1 second. Okay. Go ahead.
If I may, Commissioners, Pamela D'Agostino on behalf of the County Attorney's Office, just to explain the clarification in replacing the resolution, the date in the last complete whereas clause was incorrect. It had Tuesday, April 26th of 2016 listed as the date for the public hearing. Obviously, the public hearing is taking place today, June 2nd. So that was just a Scrivener's error. So you'll understand why we've replaced the resolution.
All right, are there any questions from commissioners on this? Commissioner Smith?
Yes, Madam Chair, I had, and hopefully they passed this on to you, I had asked, my concern was, what is the public interest to vacate that roadway or the part of that property that we're talking about? That was my question. Is there the public interest to do so?
Well, we will go to public comment in just a few minutes. We'll see what comes from that. Commissioner Whitmore?
And all of you know, my husband and I built University Health Park a couple of streets past this, east of this. So I'm very aware of what the history of this property has been forever and what it's grown to be, which is shocking. I drive back there to check my husband's mail every month or two because he still gets mail there for his former doctor's practice. So now the development behind that, I'm just totally blown away. So in my mind up here, to me, this right-of-way vacation is totally of public interest because of what's going on there. And so I did want to state that this only makes sense, and I asked staff, were there any utilities and stuff? Remember, Thomas, I asked you that yesterday. If you just want to bring that up, since it was mentioned.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Whitmore, with respect to the 10,000 square feet of platted right-of-way that is pursuant to this right-of-way request, the present condition of that particular right-of-way, it is unimproved. There is no pavement, there is no sidewalks, there is no curbing, there are no utilities identified or included within the area that is subject to the right-of-way vacation.
I just wanted that on the record. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to applicant in just a moment. Can someone look into the AC? I mean, is everybody warm up here?
I'm freezing.
I'm freezing.
Y'all are
Take off your
freezing?
jacket. Yeah.
It's trying to cool off, but it was
Ooh,
burning
good
up.
heavens, it's been hot up here all day. All right, can we hear from the applicant, please?
Get her a bigger fan.
Chairman Ball, is the board granting their request for 30 minutes?
Is
Well,
it
I
gonna
can get
take-
into that.
I don't think you'll need that long.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Chris Roper, and I have been sworn.
Mr. Roper, do you feel that you're going to need 30 minutes for this, for the vacation?
Not unless the board would like a full-blown presentation.
I don't think so.
We're geared up for one.
Does anyone need a
If it becomes the
full-
pleasure of the board.
No.
Otherwise,
have
we
some
have a whole
questions.
team here that can answer questions.
But not full.
I have questions.
Do you need a full presentation?
Not a full, but I have questions.
Okay, no, then we don't need a full presentation. She just will ask you questions afterwards.
Okay, well, that'll work.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Go ahead with your presentation that we
Yes.
don't need.
We
Go
just
ahead.
don't need a full one.
Oh, God.
Down.
Okay, so
I love
we have a full-blown presentation geared towards the rezoning request and the associated preliminary site plan.
So we'll wait for that.
Because we feel that's the meat of the project, that's the dog, and the right-of-way vacation will be the tail on the dog. that would- in our-
Right, go ahead.
I would like to hear a full presentation. This is an area that has, that I'm extremely familiar with, having worked with
She
a
was my
former
planner.
property owner in the area, looking at how this entire area was designated for mixed use under a county-initiated comp plan amendment back when I worked at the county. So there's been a lot of different uses that have been approved here in the past, but the difficulty has always been access, because you do have a access agreement with Sarasota County that does restrict access. So I'm very interested to hear about what's proposed and how the access is going to work out. So I would like a full presentation
There you go.
on
right.
this application.
On this little part or the whole thing?
No, the road right away, if you look, there's a hole in it that doesn't even make any sense. So the right of way vacation to me is not the issue. The issue
That's what we're
is
here about.
more.
Right now, we're on the
rezone.
vacation, though.
We're on the
We're not
vacation.
on
They're
the
combined together. We opened them together, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
That's what the recommendation was, to open them together.
I foresaw they were going to be interrelated, so I suggest you open them together. But just when you come down to vote at the end of the meeting, just
Okay.
do the street vacation
Well,
first.
let me be clear. I want a full presentation on the rezone part of the application, not necessarily the right-of-way vacation.
Yes, ma'am, and that's what we're prepared
And
to
I need the
do.
right of way, Madam Chair. In both.
It's one of these days up here on the board.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Smith. Go ahead.
Okay, well, then we'll get started with the presentation
30
on
minutes
the
for each.
rezoning. So, starting with the slideshow here, the first slide that you see is a visual representation, of course, of the project. The nature of the request is a proposed rezoning to planned development residential with an associated preliminary site plan. The project is a 324-unit Class A luxury apartment complex with full amenities, situated on a 25.6-acre vacant infill site along University Parkway. We're proposing 12.7 units per acre density, and that's a gross basis. The apartment buildings themselves would be around 3 stories, subject to a 45-foot height limitation. In terms of project chronology, this project has been in the review and approval process for almost a year now, beginning back in July of last year when the applications were submitted. In December, P&Z recommended approval of the comprehensive plan amendment that is associated with this request. The board transmitted that plan amendment back in January of this year to the State Department of Economic Opportunity, who then issued a letter of no comment, no objection. This board then voted to approve the comprehensive plan amendment in March of this year. Shortly thereafter, P&Z recommended approval of the request that's before you today. And of course, staff recommends approval as well. On that note, I would like to thank staff for doing such a thorough review of the project and for providing such a detailed staff report. It's really, really good work. So to touch on the issue of compatibility, this slide here shows the subject property in red and in context with its surrounding properties. which consists of a mix of commercial, industrial, single-family, and multifamily residential. The proposed multifamily represents a logical transition between the higher intensity uses to the south and the lower density residential uses to the north. Rather than try to squeeze more density onto the site, the applicant is proposing density that is significantly less than the maximum allowed by the current future land use classification. Rather than seek a lot of variances to the county code, the applicant is proposing enhancements to the site that go above and beyond what's required by the county code. For instance, the proposed open space amount is 48% of the site versus 30% that's required by code. The screening buffers, the applicant is proposing a 20% larger buffer along Kentucky Street than is required, a 100% larger buffer along Broadway Avenue than is required, a 400% larger buffer along the north property line than is required, and a 100% larger buffer along the east property line than is required. To address the concrete plant to the west, the project proposes a setback of 200 feet from the westernmost property line to the nearest apartment building. That translates to a building-to-building separation distance of over 350 feet, which we feel is more than adequate to ensure there will be no impacts on this project from the concrete plant and vice versa. To address the residential to the north, the project proposes a 128-foot setback, which translates into over 200 feet for a building-to-building separation distance. Within that distance, you have a 50-foot landscape buffer, which is a natural buffer consisting of vegetation and trees that are 20 feet or more in height. You have a fence, and then on the Soleil West property itself, which is just to the north of us, you have a 20-foot landscape buffer baked into the plat for that subdivision. So within that 200-foot separation distance, 70 feet of buffer and a fence. You also have single-story garage structures that are going to be located within that distance. So we feel that all that in combination is sufficient to ensure there will be no impact to the neighboring houses by virtue of this project and also vice versa. In terms of consistency with the comprehensive plan, staff has found the project to be consistent with all the applicable policies. I won't name every single one of them, but among them, staff has found that the project is consistent with the residential 16 intent and range of potential uses, consistent with the compatibility through screening, buffer, and setback requirement, consistent with the requirement that the property be rezoned to planned development, consistent with the requirement that the property be required to have pedestrian and bicycle access to community spaces, consistent with the goal for a variety of housing opportunities near employment, shopping, services, and alternative transportation, and consistent with the goal to provide a variety of dwelling unit types in the area. On that note, I would mention that while the project does not qualify for the statutory definition of affordable housing, it does qualify for what I would call the walking around definition of affordable housing, in that the project will be apartments and by its nature will be less expensive to live in than the housing in the area. The project is also consistent with the Land Development Code. There's numerous criteria that we have to demonstrate consistency with. I've found 3 that I've included in the slideshow presentation here today. One is you have to demonstrate changed conditions. The project more than demonstrates this because the original zoning was established in 1992, which was 24 years ago, and since that time, the county has approved numerous projects within a 1-mile radius of the subject property, including the Serenata Sarasota condominium complex in 2005, the townhouse residences at University Groves in 2007. 2014 was a big year You had Soleil West condominiums and the adjacent Soleil West subdivision. You had the opening of the town center at University Groves, which includes the Culvers, the Tire Kingdom, and the Dunkin' Donuts. The following year, 2015, Starbucks opened up, and perhaps most importantly in terms of change conditions, again, this board did approve the change in land use to the residential 16 classification earlier this year. If you want to expand your radius by more than a mile, you see that the University Town Center Mall opened up in 2014 with just under 1 million square feet of retail space. Generally speaking, you have growth of employment base along US 301 and University Parkway, which again creates a need for housing that's affordable to the workers. The applicant has to demonstrate that adequate public facilities are available to the site. Well, that is the case because there's water and wastewater available. There's adequate roadway capacity as demonstrated through the traffic study that's attached to the staff report that's made a part of this record. There's adequate school capacity available as evidenced by the school board letter that's also attached to the staff report. The applicant will be constructing Kentucky Street and Broadway Avenue along the project boundaries and dedicating those as roads to the county. Of course, they will have sidewalks on both sides. There will also be sidewalks that's internal to the project. Therefore, there'll be plenty of pedestrian connectivity. And finally, the applicant will be providing a bus stop for school-aged children along University Parkway and a parking area for the parents to be able to watch their kids board the bus. The project does request 3 special approvals. One, because the proposed density exceeds 9 units per acre, but it does meet the criteria for the special approval because it's a logical expansion of the urban environment. The density is consistent with the area and services are available. It requires a special approval because it's adjacent to the perennial lake or stream. However, there's a stipulation in the staff report the applicant agrees with. And by the way, we agree with all the stipulations. We have no problem complying with any of them. We will provide additional stormwater treatment to protect the water quality of that perennial lake or stream. The project's located within an entranceway, and staff has found that the project has met or exceeded all of the criteria applicable to the entranceway. And the project uses the access points that are specified by the entranceway requirements, and it provides a 300-foot setback along University Parkway. This is my last slide before I hand it over to Stephen. We're also requesting a special finding that the apartment buildings can exceed 35 feet in height. And on that note, I'd like to point out that all the property that surrounds this subject property is allowed at least 45 feet in height. The one exception is the Soleil project to the north, which is about 35 feet. However, we are compatible with that, even given the 45 feet on our site, due to that 200-foot building-to-building separation ratio and the 128-foot setback. Again, within that space, which is, you're talking 2/3 of the distance of a football field, within that space, you're looking at a 70-foot landscape buffer, 50 feet that's on site, 20 feet on the neighboring property. There's a fence and the single-story garages all within that space. Further ticking off the criteria, we do have an articulated roofline design. The building facades are modulated and have balconies. We're using a variety of building materials, including hardy board, stucco, and stone, all of which is consistent with the Class A luxury apartment product. And we will have a variety of color palette. So at this point, I'd like to hand it over to Stephen Novacki, who is a business representative with Pacern. Also here on the team is David Fuchsen, who is the engineer for the project, and Helen Ford, who is also an attorney at my firm. Before I do that, I would like to reserve time for rebuttal if that becomes necessary.
We'll make sure you have that.
You get it at the end.
Thank you, Chris, and good morning, Commissioners. As Chris said, my name is Stephen Novacki. I'm the developer representative for Pacern, as well as the applicant for this project. I thank you all for taking the time and for your thoughtful consideration of this project. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about Pacern's credentials. Secondly, talk about the site plan and what the project will look like. Thirdly, the strong demand for rental apartments throughout Manatee County. Number 4, our proposed rental rates and how we feel that they are well suited for the workforce in Manatee County. And finally, just some concluding remarks. In terms of Pacerne, we are a vertically integrated real estate property company. Building rental apartments is our primary line of business. We are vertically integrated with in-house development, construction, and property management. The company is family-owned and operated since 1925. We have a national footprint with offices throughout the country. The office in Florida is in Orlando. That's where I work out of. Mr. Pacerne opened that office in 1984. Him and his family have developed 40,000 units throughout the country and own and operate 30,000 units today in 23 states. In terms of what the project will look like, what I've done here, I thought to best illustrate this, in addition to just the site plan that we've shared with you all, is to share this project. It's a representative project in Orlando. It's called the Oasis at Moss Park. For those that are familiar with the area, this is within the Medical City area, just north of the airport. On the western boundary there is State Road 417, which we see is similar to 301 with respect to traffic counts. Also wanted to point this out. You can see here we have a centralized retention pond in the center of the property and the boulevard entrance. Again, centralizing our amenities, and really wanted to kind of focus the residents' attention inward within the center of the community. This project actually got its final certificate of occupancy last week and is currently leasing at 35 units per month, which is 10 units per month higher than our initial projections. Here's another representative project. We actually just closed on this site. This is also in Orlando. It's called the Oasis at Grand Pines. Closed on this in January. It's a little tough to see here, but I guess what I wanted to share is there's some consistencies in the site design on these two projects and with the one that we're proposing here in Manatee County. As you can see here, since we've closed, we've broke ground, we have the road, all the underground infrastructure in place, the road network, and each of those great areas are building pads. And again, we've centralized all of this around a centralized pond in the center of the property. So here's what we propose for the project here, Oasis at University. A lot of similarities, the boulevard entrance, the clubhouse with the amenities, and everything surrounding. The clubhouse will be home to 10,000 square feet of amenity space, really a nice resort feel for the residents. There's a game room, a conference room, a business center, a room for yoga, Pilates, fitness on demand. There's a small locker area with a fitness center, as well as a club room that has a double-sided fireplace within the club room. And on the other side is our screened-in patio that overlooks the pool area. In terms of the unit finishes, these are really condo quality finishes. When you build 324 units, you get tremendous economies of scale. And so you can dress up the interiors better than you would otherwise if it was a smaller project. So we have the granite, the stainless, the hardwood floors, the crown moldings, really nice unit interiors for the residents. Next couple slides here talk about demand. We obviously take a close look at this as we're identifying sites for future projects. And what this shows, and this data is all according to Reese. It's probably 6 or 8 months dated, but still very, very relevant to what the actual statistics are today. But this shows a vacancy rate of 3.1% throughout Manatee and Sarasota County. So the vacancy rate is very low, and the demand for apartments is extremely high. What's important, this basically breaks down the vacancies by in different groups. So you have, before 1970, in the 70s, in the 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s. And what's interesting here is you can see that for product built after 2009, which is the newest product, the vacancy rate of 2.6% is actually lower than the vacancy rate of all apartment rental projects as a whole. So we see strong demand, in particular in the newer product. This here is the inventory of rental apartments, again, according to Reese, within Sarasota and Manatee counties. Just to jump through this quickly, you can see in the 1980s that represents 31% of the product. In the 1990s, 27%. Between 2000 and 2009, only 16%. For product after 2009, there's only 2% of the inventory in the marketplace. So clearly, there's an opportunity here to add some much-needed new apartment stock within Manatee County. In terms of rental rates, we basically have 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom apartments. Within each bedroom type, there's different sizes, and so that's why the rents range. On the low end, it'll be $995 a month for a 1-bedroom, going up to $1,195. The 2-bedrooms are $1,250 to $1,395, and the 3-bedrooms are $1,595 to $1,695. These would be our starting prices when we first begin leasing efforts. In terms of income requirements, we require that the unit or that the household makes 3 times the monthly rent. And so just as an example, for someone wanting to rent our smallest unit, the household income would have to be $35,820 annually. And we feel that's very appropriate for the local workforce, especially considering in that particular unit, there could be 2 occupants. And so folks could literally work anywhere along the university corridor, along the airport, north here into downtown Manatee. Just 2 last slides here. Wanted to summarize what I think are the benefits for Manatee County. Chris touched on some of these. We're putting new public road infrastructure in place by building Kentucky Street and then building Broadway over to Florida. That's approximately 1,300 linear feet, and we've priced that out. That'll cost about $800,000. So we have that within our budget. We're putting those 2 public roads in place, and we're dedicating them to the county. Number 2, the new utility infrastructure. There's a sewer line that we need to construct that starts from our property, goes along University and up Shade to Broadway. That will be a line that we're putting in. That's about $300,000. It'll be within the right-of-way, and so it'll become county-owned, dedicating that. So that's the utility infrastructure that's necessary for our project, but then also as the immediate area continues to get developed, other users will be able to tie into that line as well. The project will be home to 500 residents, which will be a catalyst for future retail, restaurant, and job growth. We think that the project will enhance the immediate area and the appearance of the university corridor in this particular pocket. Impact fees that we pay at closing on this project, if approved today, will probably be sometime late 4th quarter this year, which is how much time we think it'll take to get through permitting, so we can break ground. So we'll pay that check of $2.5 million to the county at closing later this year. And then on an ongoing basis, the property generates annual tax dollars of approximately $650,000. So in conclusion, we feel the project complies in all respects with the county comprehensive plan and land development code. It's compatible with the surrounding uses. It generates significant annual tax revenues for the county. It provides much-needed apartment rental housing for the citizens here within the county. The staff recommends approval, and we request your support as well. Thank you.
Questions for the applicant? Commissioner Whitmore.
The attorney. Is it Chris?
Yes, Commissioner Chris Roper, thank you.
Okay. I've gone through this carefully. How many units is it, I've lost it on my internet right now, but how many units is it approved for, the request?
The request is for 324 units.
Oh, yeah, okay. And it was approved, the history of the property was approved for 140 hotels, rooms, and 176,000 warehouse space. That's what it was approved for, correct?
I believe that is correct.
Yes, I looked it up. 48% open space, there's no wetlands, 2 accesses, Kentucky and then on Florida Street. Clark, I know you were warned. The lights coming on University and Shade. For somebody that's been driving from Anna Maria Island to Shade Avenue for 15, 17 years, Lockwood Ridge is always saved being able to turn into shade because there's that space where the light is. So it's never been an issue. There has been a few fatalities over the last 20 years. But with this additional light on Shade, could you kind of give us an estimate? Because that makes me feel more comfortable for the accesses to go out onto University.
Good morning. For the record, Clark Davis, Transportation Planning Division Manager, and I have been sworn. If I understand the question, it's related to when the signal might be installed.
Yes.
We are currently negotiating with the representatives for development within University Groves, which is the development mostly east and north of the Shade at University intersection. We are working on an agreement that still needs some internal review, but they've started the permitting of the signal design with both Sarasota County and Manatee County. So it's unlikely we'll be able to get it to the board before the break, but hopefully in August we can get an agreement before the board.
God. We have
and
a party?
After that, then we can start setting the wheels in motion. Now, how long it takes from agreement to getting it under construction, I don't know, but late this year, early next year is starting to sound realistic at this point.
Finally.
But we'll be able to provide the board more definitive updates as we get farther along through the agreement, which will have to be brought before you. It's a contractual agreement between the county and the developer. It'll be brought forward to you for your review.
Okay, and I looked at, the planning commission voted, one commissioner voted against it, was Bowers, and it was because of the 35 feet height. So I asked staff, I don't know if you all got a copy of it, because from being there for so many years, everything's over 35 feet. So I asked to find out what was over 35 feet, or was everything 35 feet? And Compass Storage is a 4-story building, which was right adjacent to it. That's actually 43 feet, and it was approved for 45, but they went to 43. University Grove Apartments is at 38.4 feet and at 49 feet. The cement, I asked about the cement plant because of the stacks. It's zone high manufacturing, and they're allowed 55 feet. We're not sure how high that stack is, but it's at least 55 feet. So to me, that you're requesting 40 feet with your proposed 40 feet, but you're requesting 45 for a cushion for 3 stories, is what staff wrote in the email to me. Correct?
That is correct. Our tallest building is planned to be 42 feet.
Okay, so you're actually
Asking for a
compatible with
3-foot
everything
cushion.
in the neighborhood, except for University Groves, it has 38.4 feet. But they were approved they do have some 49 feet, so you are compatible. To me, it's a good infill project. The negative was the rail and the concrete plant. Since 97, when we started this project, since that concrete plant's been there, I've never seen water not running on that, even during the downturn. So I don't have any heartburn about that. 200-foot setbacks to the west, you're exceeding the buffers. I heard, and maybe you can confirm this, I'm not sure, I heard the site used to be a cattle dipping vats, storage tanks, and buried drums. So will you be doing some kind of environmental deal to make sure that that's all cleaned up, or Joel, or?
Yes,
or
Commissioner,
you?
we'll be doing the environmental studies prior to final site plan approval as part of the county's normal process.
Okay, and again, I know we've talked about affordable housing and workforce housing. If you actually take a drive all around there, because many know I try to work 1 day a week as a nurse, and I go to that Life Care Center, which is a skilled nursing facility that's right around the corner, and I actually go through Shade and go through all there that way. Very high-end skilled nursing. If you go back into the developments, brand-new, high-end. So to have apartments, again, that's unfortunately, we wish you would, but that's a free enterprise, that's your decision. And I'm not going to ding you on that because of where it is. My only thing is I still want to make sure that you will have some kind of stipulation in the paperwork reminding everybody that they're adjacent to a rail and a concrete plant.
Yes, ma'am, we can agree to that stipulation. I've actually written out some language that we would propose to insert into the staff report as an additional stipulation. I can read that into the record. Individual leases shall contain a disclosure notifying potential residents of the proximity of the existing railroad and concrete plant located to the west of the subject property.
Okay,
And we'd be fine with that stipulation.
thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioner Benak?
Yeah, it looks like a beautiful development. Thank you for a very complete presentation. I appreciate that. One thing about this site, I see you have some pretty significant setbacks. Are you going to have any opportunity to save any of the significant trees on the site?
Let's see who might know the answer to that one. Do you know the answer?
Yes.
Have a nose to buyers.
The answer to that is yes. With 25 acres, we actually have more acreage than we need. And so we're going to be leaving that natural landscape buffer of that 50 feet on the north side. And then all the way on the west side of the property, we'll be leaving some of those trees there as well.
Okay, great. And I see Florida Street is planned to be an emergency access. Is that correct? What kind of access will be there at Florida Street?
Just for the fire department for a second means of access if necessary.
So one of those things with a card gate that will meet the requirements of our emergency access people for them to be able to get in. How about the other people? Will they be able to use, the residents, will they be able to use that access, or?
We can go either way. We can leave it as emergency access, or if it was for a resident, it would probably be an exit only. What we really want to do is try and channel everyone up Kentucky, which is really the main entrance of the property. If folks are exiting onto Florida and it's available for the fire department, that's something that we can. We're open to going either way, and we'll probably have more discussions with that as we move on.
Well, I will be looking at staff for that because we do have, it's interesting, this area is subject to a interlocal agreement with Sarasota that limits the access points.
Okay.
Which does create some difficulties. It has created some difficulties over time, so I will be looking for staff to give an answer. I don't know if you guys are going to do a full presentation, but I do want to know about that because the best case scenario would be to have future Broadway extended. And question for you, are you building Broadway as a two-lane
Yes.
local street standard?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So the best case scenario to get to that lighted shade would be to have Broadway go through, but we have no longer requiring that to be a thoroughfare, so it makes it more difficult to get that through to shade. I mean, this is an area that really needs some looking at how we can create better access for the total number of units that are going to be coming out, because universities, I live very close to here, university's very busy in this area.
We agree with you, and we're hopeful that as the 3 or 4 property owners to our west, develop those properties, that they will put in place and provide that connectivity of Broadway from Florida to Shade.
Right.
We're hopeful for that as well.
Right. And just on the height issue, I would note that the current zoning does not have a height restriction.
Right.
Current zoning as PDC does not have a height restriction. It also, they changed from the mixed use, which of course didn't have a height restriction, to the Res 16. So basically imposing this height restriction on yourselves. So I think that's important to note. And I ride my bike through this area because I live very close. Actually used to be great. You could cut through the subdivision to the north and go up Circus, but they've now got a gate, so they don't
you can't do
allow
that
people like me to go on their bike anymore through the development, which is too bad. It's just going to be an issue that we need to continue to look at. And I have a question for staff also when you get to your presentation, is whether or not Circus actually extends all the way to this property or not. I don't know if the existing Circus right away. I didn't think it did, but I wasn't sure.
It doesn't.
Okay, so, yeah.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
Thank you for the presentation, and no doubt, it's a beautiful community, and you've had success with it elsewhere, no doubt. You know, I've been a little leery about the pricing and so forth, but the project itself looks great. I personally, right now, don't have concerns with the 45 feet. I've been driving around a lot of other communities south of us around the Punta Gorda area, and especially the Estero area, which is really growing crazily. And they have similar type offerings and amenities, and it blends well. The questions I have are again, tying in to Broadway so we can connect, to have the inter-neighborhood connectivity, to take a lot of that traffic having to go on to University, so they could connect into Shade, across, to take them all the way to Tuttle, to get to the shops there. So I guess that's a question for staff, how we're planning to initiate that, because all those other neighborhoods that Commissioner Whitmore was referring to, and Commissioner Benak, I mean, that have sprung up kind of quietly in the last couple years, that are beautiful back in there, all are interconnected. And so this would just be really, I think, a necessity for this community to be able to access another route other than going on to University, having either a light there, or having to go up to the next intersection and do a U-turn. I mean, because that's creating a whole bunch of problems doing a U-turn, and you're really close to 301, so maybe they would have to go all the way to 301 at the light and turn around and so forth. The only thing I just wanted to mention is and thank you for the slide about the rents and how much that equates to for income, because
Sure.
people can't quite grasp it. And I know that the formula that you used was 3 times.
Correct.
A lot of times when you're purchasing a house, the old formulas and some current formulas are 4 times, because they want to make sure that people have enough other income for food, transportation, car payments, taxes, whatever. So using 3 times, I just broke it down a little bit and just humor me by going over this. At the $995 price range, at the low end, 3 times would be an income roughly $36,000 that you said.
Okay, that's right.
Using the 4 times income, that bumps it all the way up to $46,500. So for $995, and this is important. So if someone was prudent and didn't want to spend a third of their income on housing and wanted to be prudent and spend a third, then their income would need to be $46,500.
Yes, and even there, it's per household. So
Right.
if there's 2 occupants in that 1 bedroom, they could each make half of that $36,000 or $48,000 or $46,000 figure to be able to qualify from an income standpoint.
Correct. And then I just did 2 other categories. The $1,200 a month, a factor of 3, is a yearly income of $43,000. A factor of 4 on 1,200 is $57,600. And then the 1,300, the factor of 3 is $46,800, and a factor of 4 is $62,400. So it's expensive for rent, but you know, you're renting into a very luxurious community, and I get that. And thank you for adding in the stipulation of notice to buyers for the railroad and the cement batch plant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah Shank.
Madam Chair, since that comment came up on the stipulation, I have no objection to have a notice to buyers as indicated, but my concern was the applicant raised today the issue of putting a notice in their leases. We shouldn't be stipulating what people put in their leases. It's private agreement, and we might incur other liability. So I would ask the applicant to change that stipulation or delete it.
But he voluntarily?
I don't care if it's voluntary.
Oh, okay.
Well, we have to look out for the interests of the county.
It's up to him
Cannot
what he does.
But we would
stipulate,
yeah.
we
would
can't
really like it
stipulate
if you
private
would.
agreement between the
Right.
landlord and the tenant.
Yeah, she's
There's a
right.
lot of issues in that, ADA accessibility. We are not touching that.
Okay.
But you heard.
We'll probably put it in,
I would
put it
track
in
them.
on our own accord. We've
Okay.
done this
We
before,
won't
and the
stipulate.
distance is so significant, we don't have any concerns with that neighbor to the west.
Okay, so I retract that you're not stipulating it, but it's up to you.
You're going to be a nice neighbor.
It's not coming from the county commission.
Right.
Okay, I don't have anyone else on the board, so staff, your turn.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Margaret Tusing with Building and Development Services, and I have been sworn. Do y'all want me to do a full presentation or just try to answer some questions that you have?
I'm good with answers.
Okay, because, I mean, a lot of what I would say, they have already covered. Let me look at my notes to see if I need to add anything into the record. I mean, they discussed, for the height, the analysis that we do, looking at the building materials, the roof articulation, and then the surrounding heights within the area. This is compatible with that, as Commissioner Whitmore stated, and by right, the HM zoning is 55 feet, and by right, LM zoning is 45. So they certainly fall within that, and so I don't really think I have anything additional to add. So if you have questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And I also do need to point one thing out. I need a revised recommended motion. I had omitted that the net density is also above the limitation within the comprehensive plan of 12 dwelling units to the acre. It's 13.7, so I have amended the motion. And the applicant is aware of the new motion.
All right, Margaret, thank you.
So I'm not really sure y'all had land use questions. I think mainly they were transportation related.
I have one commissioner on the
Oh,
board.
no, it was related to the road.
So I
None.
will turn that over to
Questions?
Mr. Davis.
I do, and I said that I was going to ask this. I just want to know on the tree replacement, what we do require in our land development code, because this and another applications coming after this, has some significant trees that are going to be removed. So I just wanted to hear from staff, what is our requirement for tree replacement?
Joel Christian for staff, I've been sworn. Tree replacement is based on the size of the tree removed. When an existing tree is 4 to 15 inch diameter at breast height, it requires 1 3-inch replacement tree. If it's between 15 and 30 inch diameter at breast height, it requires 2 5-inch replacement trees. Trees over 30 inches diameter at breast height require 3 5-inch replacement trees. That's per our land development code.
Okay, and so we impose this requirement at time of final site plan, and if they cannot comply, if they, for some reason, because there's not enough room to plant the trees, then what do we do?
There's several options in the land development code, one of those being payment into the tree trust fund. Our adopted fee schedule has a fee based on that replacement tree size. That is an option. They can also look at off-site replacement if they have other areas that are needing trees. We've done it with schools, we've done it with parks. So those are also options if they can't get them on site.
And in a parking lot, we typically require shade trees to be planted. It's been kind of a bugaboo for me lately that I've been not seeing enough shade trees being planted. I mean, there must be some concern about oak trees or something being planted, because I see in a whole lot of places it looks like crepe myrtle being planted. I'm like, that's not a shade tree. So just want to hear again from staff whether or not we are in fact requiring in parking lots shade trees to be planted.
There are requirements in parking lots for canopy trees to be planted. However, the code does allow for a certain percentage to be utilized as palms. I think it's 40%. Don't quote me on that percent, but I think it's 40%. And you have to do a cluster of 2 palms per 1 canopy tree. I don't think it's applicable to this project, but some other projects that may have overhead power lines. Typically, they do the understory trees, like a crepe myrtle, ligustrum, some other tree species that won't exceed 14 feet in height per FPL guidelines for power line, trees near power lines. That's a lot of times what we see on commercial properties along roadways with overhead power lines.
If I could add to that, the oak trees, I know that we've had a real problem in the past with the roots from oak trees, so that, it's probably going to be something we'll look at eventually, I would think. Joel?
Definitely. We have no requirement in our code for oak trees. Unfortunately,
anymore.
it is the best, largest shade tree we have, but it does have fairly disruptive roots.
Right.
They typically don't do well in those smaller parking lot island situations. So we're trying to find alternate tree species that will work and meet the aesthetic designs of the applicant.
All right, any
Just the questions for staff that already asked about access, and I think Robin asked questions about access to.
All right, are we ready then for transportation? I don't have anyone on the board. Okay.
The aerial photo that's on the document camera shows the Oasis area. The line works a little bit light, but in a sort of bolder yellow line is the outline of the Oasis properties and the existing rights-of-way that are there. And ghosted, you can see the property lines for adjacent projects. In particular, that is the Broadway right-of-way, which terminates here. This property is the one where there was previously a house of worship that's now being developed as a commercial site, includes Chute Straight. When they came in, they requested a new connection, or basically to use the existing connection for the house of worship, on a spacing that's comparable to what we see for the streets west of there. Because that was a driveway rather than a right-of-way, we coordinated with Sarasota County and made sure that they were comfortable with the way we were approaching things and found it consistent with our interlocal agreement. For Oasis and the properties to the west, those are existing rights-of-way. And so it's difficult for us to say you can't use an existing public road right-of-way. It's, in a way, sort of an edge condition for our interlocal agreement. And we try and work with it as best we can under the terms of the agreement and our public works standards that guide access. And so in this case, what we find is our interlocal agreement requires that at the time you have proposed development or redevelopment that will generate 75 daily trips or more. A lot of things we talk about here are in peak hour trips. Daily trips is a fairly low bar. I mean, just about any residential development with 20 units and sometimes less than that would generate 75 trips a day or more. So Oasis would certainly exceed that. But at that point, that is when we start looking at cross-access easements to adjacent properties. Well, in this case, we've got something that's better than a cross-access easement. We have them recording additional right-of-way for Kentucky and connecting that to Broadway, and then improving Broadway to the east to connect to Florida. So it'll be a road that runs roughly to here and then across and connects down on the east side of the, I think it's called Compass Self-Storage, but it's a large mini warehouse facility there. And so they are, in staff's opinion, being consistent with the provisions of the interlocal agreement to provide those cross-access to adjacent properties. As for the prospects to connect Broadway in the future, it's not shown on here, but just off the edge of this map would be Shade Avenue. And so our struggle is finding ways to connect across. There were stipulations on the development that includes the Chute Straight, that they provide connection to 31st Street Court East and allow for future connections to the east, but it may not be along a Broadway alignment. The issues here are relatively low and environmentally sensitive land there that may preclude us from connecting Broadway along that alignment, but we are looking for ways to provide the cross connections that will get us from 31st over to Broadway as more of the development comes in that area.
Commissioner Benak.
On Florida, are there any improvements that are needed on Florida to allow this to be used as an access for this development?
It appears to have been built to local road standards. I think Thomas is going to address that for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Benak, just to confirm what Clark just mentioned, yes, Florida Street was constructed with the storage facility and was constructed county standards. There is a sidewalk that was constructed along the roadway as well.
In Florida, there's a sidewalk?
Yes, there's an existing sidewalk.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
Mr. Gerstenberg, where you see the, what right-of-way on Broadway that ends, and what's going north, and what's the street?
Right here.
The right-of-way north of that?
Say what?
University Groves.
Yeah, so starting from that point, that corner, yeah, going north to the next point, yes. What's there?
The, I believe, and Clark might have to help me on this one as well, I believe those are existing platted right-of-ways that are unimproved. There were no roadways that were constructed in that particular area.
So could that be a future source of taking all that traffic north and east rather than just due east? Because
I'm not sure. That's 31st Street Court East, and it does have a right-of-way that continues to the north to another right-of-way.
Utility, right?
But based on what's going on there and the apparent environmental and potential stormwater issues involved with that, it may be easier to provide that connection to the south than it will be to the north of that Broadway right-of-way. Makes sense? I can get up.
can that be looked into for the future? Because you're going to have other growth from other these parcels and the Shoot Straight parcel and.
Yes, this would be something that would be addressed at the time of site planning for those developments, because all of the roads inside this box, if you will, formed by the railroad tracks, the developments to the north, Shade and University, they're local, and so the local roads are built by the developers in accordance with our code and consistent with their site plans, and what would have to happen there is in the name of complying with the access requirements of the interlocal agreement that they would need to start providing those cross-access, and I'm assuming they would try and do that within the existing rights-of-way, but there are multiple options for doing it. The farther we get away from University Parkway, the harder it is to do things, because the interlocal agreement provisions more affect the property owners that immediately butt the right-of-way. Right now, this is a single parcel. But if it were split, then we would be worried more about what the guys down here are doing, rather than the ones up there.
The parcel itself with this proposed subdivision, the very top corner, that northeast corner. But
Talking about the Oasis, this area?
Yeah. So that looks like it's adjacent to the right-of-way there. Is that correct?
I believe at that point, there is no right-of-way. The right-of-way that exists in the area extends to about here. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a little ghosted yellow line there. West of there, it's either been vacated or never existed, but there is a power line or utility easement of some sort. There's an area between the two developments that is in private ownership. There may be easements across it, but it is not a public right-of-way for road purposes.
Okay. All right, and then just a couple of questions, I guess, for the applicant or staff. Nothing to do with roads.
All right, well, can I ask one question?
roads.
Hold on. Commissioner Whitmore.
And as you're looking at this broadly, I don't have as much heartburn if it unfortunately doesn't go all the way through, because Broadway and Shade, there will be a light there. That's a given. That's going to provide major safety from Shade until 301, only for somebody that's been driving that since '97. The big development that we're seeing on the north of this project already dumps to Broadway or Shade. You can go either way, because I do it all the time. You can go down Shade, and then you can go right on Broadway, and then you go on Tuttle, and you can go to the nursing home or whatever. And these subdivisions do the same thing. I follow them. So I think, you know, I don't have as much heartburn if it doesn't connect in the future, because there's not many more parcels left here to develop. You've got that shooting range. How much traffic does that take, you know, use? You do have University, and they have 2 access points. So I'm okay with that if it never happens. It would be nice if it did. I thought that was a goat and a chicken farm on Shade where the Synovia Bank is now. So I can't believe that was environmentally sensitive lands, but maybe it was. And there was a house back there. But anyway, so if it doesn't happen, fine, because these projects north of this are using Shade, and they're using, I've seen them go on Broadway to Tuttle.
In this map, a little smaller scale, but it does pick up a little bit more of the area. What Commissioner Whitmore is referencing is we're working now with the developers of University Groves for a signal at Shade and University. Shade, and then this little stub here is Broadway. You can connect all the way over to Tuttle Avenue that way. So development in University Grove, which is primarily just off the edge of this page, but in Soleil West and the condominium Soleil, I guess, can get out both on Shade and Broadway to either existing signalized intersection locations or places that are about to be. With the completion of Kentucky and a portion of Broadway, there will be a small area that allows for some circulation and connection to a point that has a full median opening at Kentucky. So that will help with the circulation for the development west of Shade until we can hopefully make that connection to Shade.
Thank you, and I'm done.
Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, that Kentucky has a full median opening. And what were you saying about how that will help the properties to the east? wasn't really following that, what you just said on utilizing that full median opening at Kentucky.
Okay. This is a stub of Kentucky today. It will be constructed into Broadway and Broadway over. So we'll have, for the mini warehouse, the development that occurs in here, and any of the developments that occurs along Florida, and then as more developments occur, connect these other rights of way, the north-south roads, between Florida and 31st. We'll start creating some connectivity that will allow people that need to access to Kentucky's full median opening here.
Okay. And this project, because it's a PSP, have they complied with concurrency? Our concurrency standards?
Yes, we did reviewed a traffic impact analysis and found that they could satisfy the concurrency requirement.
Okay. And in terms of improvements at Kentucky and University, what kind of improvements possibly we're looking at?
I'm away from my notes, but my recollection is that a eastbound right turn lane is required, and it may also include lengthening the left turn lane, but it's basically your typical sort of site entrance related improvements at Kentucky and University.
Okay.
All right, I don't have anyone else on the board.
Yes, to confirm, it was exactly that. It's to develop a right turn lane into the site, westbound right turn on University at Kentucky, and then to extend the existing left turn lane.
And there's not a need for a light? The number of units that are proposed would not trigger the need for a light, you don't think?
Based on our analysis, there's not need for additional control at the intersection than what's there today.
Okay.
What's there today? Thank you. At this point, we'll go ahead and open for public comment. Anyone from the public like to come forward on this issue? Not seeing anyone. Are there any questions here from the board to the applicant or staff? Commissioner DiSabatino.
I just have a question for the applicant on the roofing. That's how it came into this other lady asking me. Typically, what type of roofing materials are you using in your other communities and planning here?
Yeah, we use the same architectural asphalt shingle throughout all of our projects, and that's what we plan to use here.
Okay. And I just want to make this statement that, in the past, I've been fighting this, but I am going to support this.
Thank you.
It's in South County, it's infill, it's in the southwest TIF, it's a first-class amenity, and no doubt, and the market will dictate the rents that you receive. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, I don't have anyone else on the board, so I'm going to close public comment. Staff, any closing comments?
No, ma'am.
Applicant, anything else you'd like to add?
No, ma'am, nothing to add.
Then what is the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair, excuse me, do we have public comment
Yes.
Yes, we did.
on both?
We
Okay.
have to take the vacation first, right?
Yes, number 11 first.
I move to approve the recommended motion on item number 9.
Second.
No, we've,
No,
11.
11.
We've got to do 11 first.
I thought you said 9 first. Oh, I'm sorry. I
11
move to approve the recommended motion on number 11 with a vacation, resolution vacating a portion of road right-of-way at Broadway and Tennessee Avenue, Sarasota, Florida, 34243.
Second.
We have a motion to approve number 11, the vacation from Commissioner Whitmore, with a second by Commissioner DeSabatino. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously. All right, now number 9.
Motion to approve the recommended revised motion.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Chappie, second by Commissioner DeSabatino. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously. Thank you. It is 20 minutes to 12. We will be breaking at noon. Well, we can go ahead and start number 10, I guess.
Item number 10, PDR 1526ZG, PGCI IVLC Silverleaf Villas, Phase 7, a rezone of approximately 22.5 acres for a total Silverleaf project of 285.88 acres from General Agricultural NCO to PDR NCO, located on the southeast corner of Silverleaf Avenue and US 301, and approving a revised general development plan for an additional 67 lots.
All right, staff, introductory comments, please.
I don't really have anything to add. I do know that there was a question, I believe, asked during briefings regarding what the previous gross and net densities were on the project prior to this addition. The gross density was 2.78. With these additional units, it will be 2.80, which is within the range that is permitted. And also, the net density previous was 5.20, and the net density with this will be 4.94. So it does reduce a little bit because of the open space that's provided.
This is a quasi-judicial, so I'm going to go ahead and ask, has there been any ex parte communication by the board? All right, not seeing any. The applicant.
Are we asking for a presentation?
We don't need a,
Madam Chair, I'm
Full
Pat Neal,
presentation.
100 359th Street Northwest, and I have been sworn. In the interest of saving time for the board, I'll go over the 3 small issues that I'm aware, and then we will do a full presentation if that's your desire. There are some questions. We feel that we have, in all due respect, good support from the staff and a non-controversial addition to our existing 732-home Silverleaf property. There are some questions about some wetland impacts, but the impacts, this property was approved in 2010. The impacts were conducted, mitigated, and inspected by your staff, and they are completed. There was a question about a 800-foot cul-de-sac. That has been built and completed, and the emergency access completed, and it's in a completed subdivision and is not the subject of today's amendment. We have an amendment that has no wetland impacts and no waivers of the street lengths, and I'd like to say respectfully, we think it's completely non-controversial. But if it is, we're happy to give a full presentation of the whole property.
I don't think we need a full presentation. Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. On the proposed lots that are adjacent to US 301, the standard for pool cages is being asked to be waived, and I'm wondering was that an issue for anyone in Parrish? I mean, you seem to be really concerned about that. Everywhere else in the property, obviously it doesn't matter because pool cages would not be visible. But I was a little bit concerned because I know the people in Parrish had big concerns about visibility of pool cages. So I'm wondering if you could address how you're mitigating that.
We only have a few lots that would be abutting the US 301 right-of-way, and what we're asking for is flexibility in design with staff and using that 5-foot setback that is allowed everywhere else in the county as opposed to the 15-foot. And this is general development plan design, so we don't have all of those items designed yet. But again, we've got a lot of existing trees already there in that 50-foot thoroughfare buffer, and we're just asking for flexibility.
Well, that's good, because that's my second question. Are you going to be able to save any of the existing trees? I know there's a lot I have to admit, I've been on this site. I worked on this site in my previous life. It's not ex parte communication, because it was before I was a county commissioner, so, but I have been on the site. So I know there's some nice trees.
As you know, you got stuck on the site.
I was not going to
By
bring that up.
stopping your vehicle in the middle of the stream
Oh, that's
before you were county commissioner.
Yes, I did get stuck on the site because I put it into four-wheel drive after I was stuck in
After
it.
you're stuck in the site.
You're supposed to do it before, honey. Yeah.
As you know, we have a $400 million property. It's very important to me on a personal as well as a commercial level that it look great. We have an enhanced buffer designed. Of course, we'll be careful of the pool cages. This is not only in the interest of Manatee County in their streetscape, but it's very much in the interest of the developer. So you may be assured that we'll have special treatments for any such pool cages that fall within the area that Ms. Layton spoke of.
I neglected to introduce myself, and so, I'm Rachel Layton with ZNS Engineering, and I have been sworn.
Thank you. I don't have anyone else on the board, so staff, do you have anything you want to add before we go to public comment?
No, ma'am, I just did, well, yes, ma'am, not no,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
I do have, I mean, regarding the cul-de-sac, as Mr. Neal stated, there's not a cul-de-sac issue within this particular addition. And what we have done with this addition of the project is to continue Deep Creek Terrace that will connect through this project and ultimately wind up at Silverleaf. And staff has included, and the applicant has agreed to a stipulation that says during construction of this phase that they will maintain that access point for emergency services. So we had to repeat the previous approval, so that's why sometimes you see information in a staff report when we're, doing an amendment. So we repeat the stuff, but this particular project doesn't have that issue, portion of the project. And that's all I have, ma'am.
All right, thank you. At this point, we'll go to public comment. Anyone from the public want to come forward? All right, not seeing any. We'll go back to the BCC. Commissioner DiSabatino.
Yes, I had canceled the briefing because I didn't find many issues on the agenda today, but I did send some questions, and I thank staff for addressing them ahead of time, and I thank the applicant for addressing them and bringing them up. Regarding, I had just the questions about the wetland impacts, the 800-foot cul-de-sac, and so forth. So I just wanted to thank staff and the applicant for addressing this beforehand. Thank you.
All right, there's no one else on the board, so I'm going to close public comment. Staff, any closing comments from you?
No, ma'am.
All right, we're moving right along. Applicant, anything to add? All right, this is great.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner DiSabatino, second by Commissioner Whitmore. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously. Thank you.
Now we know who's and who.
All right.
Now we're on 13, 12? Didn't we just do 12?
12.
No,
We're in
12.
December 12. All right. Yes, ma'am, Madam Clerk. Clerk, listen to me.
It's okay.
That's long.
We're at number 12.
To do with
Yes.
the other items, but we didn't.
Resolution number 16083, extension to CLOS number 05101 for Grayhawk Landing West.
Yeah, this one had the map.
Any presentation?
Oh,
Same
that's not
thing.
me.
Any comments from the board? Any presentation needed?
No.
All right, we're going to go ahead then and open this to public comment. Anyone in the public? Seeing none? All right. What is the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair, I move to adopt Manatee County Resolution 16-083, extending the Certificate of Level of Service, CLOS 05-01 for Greyhawk Landing West.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner DiSabatino, second by Commissioner Benek. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously. Number 13.
Resolution 16084, extension of CLOS number 05079 for Jarmac Industrial Park.
All right, I don't see anyone on the board. We'll open to public comment. Anyone want to come forward from the public? Not seeing anyone, we'll close public comment. Pleasure of the board.
Motion to adopt Manatee County Resolution 16-084, extending the Certificate Level of Service, CLOS 05079 for Jarmac Industrial Park.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner DiSabatino, second by Commissioner Whitmore. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously. We're moving right along now. Okay.
Never say that. Yeah, knock
I
on
should
wood.
never say it because it always
Got
changes.
one more.
Number 14.
14 is a proposed settlement agreement regarding Lake Lincoln LLC versus Manatee County, case number 2012 CA 3483.
Madam Chair, I'll lead off with the introduction on this item.
All right.
And there may be someone to speak on behalf of the property owners. I see them in the audience. Basically, this involves a lawsuit of Lake Lincoln LLC versus Manatee County. It pertains to a denial by the County Commission in October 2010 of a rezoning the planning development commercial and various other amendments to a DRI development order for the Terra DRI. There is a pending lawsuit consisting of a 3-count complaint. It's for Burt Harris Act claim, inverse condemnation, and due process claim. It's in excess of $1.9 million. The case has been set for trial the month of June 2017. You've all been briefed onto the pending litigation matters. This is not a shade meeting, so we caution the board not to engage in dialogue with the plaintiffs if they chose to speak, but merely just hear what they're requesting. The settlement agreement that's before you is for consideration, and the County Attorney's Office recommends rejection of the proposed settlement agreement presented by the plaintiffs, Lake Lincoln LLC. This was the first signed settlement agreement the county received from the plaintiffs, and it proposes 2 options. One is it basically approves a more intense use than they initially asked for on the parcel within the Terra DRI, or alternatively for the county to pay a monetary sum in excess of $2.4 million, plus their attorney's fees and professional fees. So in essence, the county attorneys recommend denial, and if the plaintiffs care to speak, they can come down.
All right, Commissioner DiSabatino.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the county attorney for just letting the public know that we could have had this in the shade, but we chose not to and chose to have this in the sunshine. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead. I don't have anyone on the board, so I'm going to go ahead and open to public comment. I do have 2 cards. The first one is John Aganelli. If you would, sir, if you'd come and give us your name, and you have 3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
My name is John Agnelli. I've been sworn. I am Vice President of Lake Lincoln, which is one of several companies that we have, and is the involved developer of Terra and Terra Manatee Inc., which was the original developer of the property, known as Terra, which is in the southwest quadrant of I-75 and State Road 70. About 1,100 acres. We're almost finished with development. I know I can't get into the Burt Harris case. I just want to say that we've spent a lot of time and money on this issue. We've asked to be able to mediate with a commissioner present. This has never happened. We did mediate with the assistant county attorneys. which produced nothing. We have met with staff, which has produced nothing. We did, Ms. Shank made a point of saying, sign settlement offer. We thought we were in negotiations, and were asked to propose one. We did, but we were told they wanted it signed, and we never did get a counteroffer. We've been playing with this thing for 4 years. I can't tell you how much money we spent on it, but it's well into six figures. All we want is some due process, as Ms. Shank pointed out to you. Now they're telling us a trial in June of next year. I mean, this just doesn't make any sense. It's not efficient use of taxpayers' money. It's certainly not efficient use of our money. We've been a big-time taxpayer and developer in this community for 30-plus years. We've employed local attorneys, local engineers, and many other local professionals. All we're looking for is a due process, get this thing over. And the one recommendation that we did get was reapply. It took us 2 years and probably $150,000 to go through the application for this little piece of property. We're not going to reapply. It makes no sense, just beating our head against the wall. We've also been commented that, boy, you had 1,100 acres there. What are you worrying about 3.3 acres for? It's our property. It's like somebody telling one of you, you can't use that bedroom anymore. You own it, but you can't use it. We just changed the rules. And that property was not a wetland when we first went in there. And there is some water back in there which we don't want to touch. So all we're saying is, forget all those details. We just want to get this brought to a head. We've been doing this. I've been in this business for 40 years. And I've never seen anything like this. And I've never seen anything like this lawsuit. It makes no sense. So just all we're asking, somebody light a fire somewhere, get this thing going. Thank you.
Thank you. John Harley, the third.
Hi, I'm John Harley, attorney here in Bradenton. I was retained as co-counsel in March of this year for Lake Lincoln. Obviously, the client would like for you to approve the settlement today, but if that's not doable, I'm here to ask you to move to go back to mediation. And the reason is that since the last mediation, the court has stricken a number of the county's defenses to this claim. So the lawsuit has an entirely different perspective than it did at the last mediation. And if you are agreeable to recommend mediation through a motion, we'd request that a county commissioner be designated as a representative this time rather than a staff member, because we think it is important that the decision makers hear out at mediation what the issues are. And of course, there's no guarantees in litigation, but that's what I'm here to request is a motion to proceed with another mediation, designating a commissioner. If you're not inclined to do that today, we are going to petition the court to require that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to come forward at this point? All right, not seeing anyone. I don't have anyone on the board.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just to respond to the comments made, basically the county attorney's office has the authority to mediate any case at any time, and we always are open to doing so if there's something that's planned to be proposed that can be compromised to save the expense of litigation. You have seen mediated settlement agreements in the past and will in the future. So the county attorney's office is not requesting a formal motion. We feel it's unnecessary at this time. But we do request the motion to reject the proposed settlement agreement because we need that in the record.
Commissioner Bussell.
Madam Chairman, I think it would be a big mistake, and I think we'd live to regret it if we appointed a member of our board to participate in this. I think it borders on violation, if not an overt violation of sunshine law. I, as a sitting commissioner, would not have the benefit of the
You've been through it.
comments that were made or made by or listened to by that representative, and I think that would not be fair. So I would not agree to any proposal that would require our board to provide a member. Secondly, you know, although in principle, I don't have much problem with going back to mediation, but I think we need an indication from the other side that they're willing to mediate, and particularly in regard to giving us something that we can analyze, and you know, our job is to see whether the comprehensive plan and land development codes are followed, and there isn't enough information at this point to do that. So if they can give us something to work on, then sure, we can mediate.
And Madam Chair, I did have one additional comment for the record and for anyone viewing the discussion today, that in the event there was ever any proposed settlement agreement that was approved by the board, it would require a rezoning of the property, the planning around commercial, and as you know, the quasi-judicial procedures would apply. Have to go to the Planning Commission for amendment, the DRI development order, and the zoning ordinance, and the Board of County Commissioners for public hearings. The plaintiffs, at least as my understanding, they dispute the process and say nothing's necessary for public hearings. There would be public hearings to rezone property. So I just want to state that clearly for the record.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Assistant County Attorney, Mr. Harley stated he was going to go to court and compel one of us to come to the hearing. Could that be done?
He can file any motions he wishes to, and we will defend the county's position that we're open to mediation, but I assume Mr. DeCarlo will object to reducing any one commissioner. He can ask for anything he wants to. It doesn't mean he's going to prevail, and doesn't mean we won't object to it.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner DiSabatino.
Yeah, and I thought a lot of this over the weekend as well, and I know we've been cautioned not to say too much because it's ongoing litigation, and we understand that. And then our county attorney just said that we're open to mediation at any time in lieu of going through a costly trial, which I totally support. So I just don't know if county's legal is wanted to meet with the applicant.
Commissioner, I
At a
think the
time.
county attorney's office should be making those decisions,
Right, that's
not
what I'm
this
saying.
board.
Well, we have to direct the county attorney's
Well, no,
office.
Do
we
not
don't-
direct the county attorney.
We don't need direction or mediation.
No.
We've done one mediation already.
Okay.
And paid for half a day of a mediator, taxpayer expense. If it looks like it's a good faith effort to negotiate, I'm sure Mr. DeCarlo would agree to another mediation.
Okay.
Commissioner Whitmore.
I just have a legal question, because I remember it was Arvida, it's whatever now, on the Causeway. And the county and the island cities were suing Bradenton, and we had a mediation. I was a designated city for the islands person, and I thought there was a county commissioner there during that mediation. So if you may want to check back in the
Well,
records, it could be something
This
different.
is a private mediation.
Okay, I just remember
Only the
that happening
parties are
before.
allowed to
Yeah.
attend. That's a different type of process.
That's the only reason why I'm asking, because I just remember it did happen like 15 years ago.
If I can ask, what do you need from this board?
Only what's before you, the action requested is consideration and motion to reject the proposed settlement agreement presented by plaintiff Like Lincoln LLC.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is unanimous. Thank you.
So hopefully you guys will mediate.
And just for the record, Robin said she would like mediation. I will say I would like mediation. I don't know, I mean, it seems like this is
Done it before. I mean,
frustrating
never
for
did this
everybody
case.
involved, so if we can resolve the issue, that sounds, certainly, I know what this board member would like, so I
Yeah,
don't
me
think
too.
I'm unique in that perspective, but.
Takes two to mediate.
Takes two to mediate. Let's leave it up to the county attorney at this point. That's
And
what
the
they
other
do.
side.
Thank you. All right, moving right along. We're going to go back to citizen comments. I do not have any cards. Is there anyone from the public that would like to come forward and speak on future agenda items? All right, not seeing anyone. And we're going to go ahead and finish up. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Bustle, can we start with you, sir?
No comments.
Commissioner Smith?
No comment.
Commissioner Benak?
Just one. If we have public comments in the morning, we have a half hour, and nobody signs up to speak, do we automatically open it up in the afternoon again?
Good
Just a
question.
clarification. I didn't
Yeah.
realize we did that.
We've been doing
It's
it.
in our, yeah, we always.
Is it in our procedures? I would like clarification. I thought it was only if we had people that had signed up in the morning and didn't get an opportunity to speak.
Thank you for bringing that up,
Well, we
because
do,
I agree.
we do it at the port.
Yeah, we do.
Well,
do it at
Well,
the
this
port.
we
isn't the
certainly
port.
never do things like we do at the port here.
No. And I think that is something that we should discuss, because I feel the same way. If we don't have anyone to cover the 30 minutes in the morning, why are we going back to it in the afternoon? But that's a decision of this board.
Well, so the request is that to ask the attorney to look into it, to see whether that in fact is the case where we,
Right.
if everybody is covered who signs up for public comment in the morning and we get through everybody, are we required to have that in the afternoon? That's the
Yes.
question that we'd like the
Yeah,
attorneys to clarify.
whether or not that's what our existing procedures say.
Okay,
I-
the way
that
their
was not my
procedures are
understanding.
written in 5.3.1, it refers to the afternoon only for people who haven't been able to speak in the morning.
That's what I
So
thought.
then
I think
we
it's
could-
typed on the agenda because we never, when the agenda's prepared 2 weeks
Right.
before the meeting,
Okay.
they never know.
Then just cut it off if we haven't gone the 30 minutes.
It could be advisable to note
Should
that on
probably
the agenda.
announce that during the meeting, though, so people don't get
Do
ticked
that.
off. And
And since we're on this subject, Ms. Schenk, if you could address the question, I know it's come up a couple of times, about whether or not we open to future agenda items in land use. And I know I got an email that said it was
Email.
considered a regular meeting. Can you just
Yes.
kind of go over that for us?
Yes, land use meetings are regular meetings, and the rule in 5.3.1 speaks of public comments at regular meetings, special meetings, and workshops. Your rule does not say you don't have the citizen comment on land use meetings. And in fact, under the SB 50, you have to have citizen comments at every meeting. That's why we added the planning commission, have citizen comment at the beginning of the meeting, and no one comes, because they're required to under the current statute.
Okay, good. That,
But how you set it up, the time limits or beginning or the end, that's all up to you.
any regular meeting, and this is a regular meeting, so we would have public comments to clarify that.
I like it.
All right, I only want to make one other announcement. There is a fundraiser coming up next Saturday night for Crime Stoppers. I think we mentioned this once before. Crime Stoppers, as I think most of you know, is a private 501c3, I think, that provides a funding source for rewards for people that help solve crimes. It is something that is conducted throughout the state of Florida, maybe throughout the country, for all I know, that kind of an organization. And there's going to be a fun whodunit, kind of a murder mystery theater. Some of us are participating in that at the DeSoto Square Mall, at the former Boaters World, next Saturday night. Tickets are available. If you go to Crime Stoppers of Manatee, the website, you can probably find tickets. But it is a way that we create a fund to pay those awards. And the awards have been going up. I mean, the number of awards granted, because citizens are engaging and helping us solve crimes in Manatee County, which is definitely a good thing. And it's going to be a fun time. And
Silent auction?
it is next Saturday, the 11th.
11th at
Thank you.
6.
And at 6 o'clock, I believe. So come see and help us solve the mystery. And there might be prizes for people that can solve it.
How much are
I think tickets are like $75 a piece. Or you can be a sponsor, buy a table if you want, or sponsor, and so.
And there's forensic people there that actually make it like a real
Yeah,
crime.
they're actually the forensics professor from Kaiser University is assisting in creating the whole scene, and they're going to actually teach a little class on forensics there to help people solve the murder mystery. So it should be fun for everyone. And there's going to be kids from Kaiser, the students, being involved as well. So have an opportunity, come on out.
Commissioner Bustle,
I
did you?
wanted to talk about the regular meeting versus future agenda items. I don't believe that at a land use meeting, we should be discussing future agenda items for regular meetings. Regular meeting, our Tuesday kind of a meeting. So I think what we need to ask the attorney to give us proper wording to either change our procedures or something in order to, I don't have any problem with public comment, but it seems to me that you would miss some of the audience that ought to hear if you start talking about future agenda items. We should not have that overlap, in my opinion.
Commissioner Chappie.
Yeah, that's why I generated the question, because I feel the same way. If it's a land use meeting, I don't consider that a regular meeting. We're conducting business where people have appointments to come in here, and we have a lot more staff here than we normally would at a land use meeting, and the applicants have a lot of people here in some cases. I feel the same way.
I had actually brought that item up right after
We have agreement
first of
to
the year,
ask
so.
the attorney to prepare necessary changes to our procedures to eliminate that possibility.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Just for clarification, we would still have public comments for land use issues.
Right.
Yes.
Future land use issues.
Right.
Sure.
All right, so is that that's a motion,
Yes, it
Commissioner?
is.
All right. We have a
Discussion.
motion by Commissioner Bussell, second by Commissioner Chappie. Madam Clerk, did you get that motion? I know it's been a long day.
She's doing great.
She is.
What I have for the record is for the county attorney's office to draft those changes for board approval, to change at land use meetings to not have future citizens' comments for future agenda items.
Unless they're land use related.
Unless they're land use related. Thank you.
Correct. Okay. Commissioner DeSabatino.
Well, no surprise, I disagree with that, because we only meet 2 regular meetings a month, and it really limits the amount of time people can come down now. I just see that, and we discussed this at the last meeting, that there are items on our land use meetings that sometimes are not land use related, and vice versa. And I thought it was discussed, and I thought we all received an email that items on, any item can be discussed at a land use meeting, which again, that's only once a month. So, just keep limiting the amount of time our citizens can come and ask us questions. I can't support that. And we did say in that email, did say that during special workshops, the comments can only be pertaining to the workshop, so that limits that, and I understand and I get that. And also at special meetings or emergency meetings can only be pertained to that subject. But now we're only talking about 1 meeting a month for land use, 2 regular, and I just can't support the motion.
Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, I'm not going to support the motion either. It hasn't been a big problem, but I think, sometimes things are timely, and sometimes we have a lot of time between meetings that just don't give people an opportunity to speak. I don't think it's been a big problem, so I'm not going to support the
Thank
motion.
you. Commissioner Whitmore?
Well, I wasn't going to support it either. I'm always, well, I never have, you know that, so.
All right, well, then we kind of know where that's leading.
Well, yes, a motion and a second.
All right, well, we have a motion and a second. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Raise your hands, I'm
I
sorry.
didn't hear Charles vote.
I didn't either.
You didn't.
Ayes.
Because I need to debate this later, I'm not for the
Ayes or
motion.
nays?
What? Excuse me. All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand.
Oh,
Come on, Betsy.
Don't vote wrong.
All right, so then the motion will lose 4-3.
Thank you.
I may can discuss it some other time, we was leaving and now we getting,
Okay.
I'm canceling appointment.
Hungry.
Reschedule, no, I had an appointment, y'all said we was out.
Are you finished with
I'm
your-
finished, yes.
Okay.
I'm canceling and rescheduling.
No comment.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
Oh, no, I just wanted to clarify, during the meeting, Commissioner Cheppy showed me his phone about trees. And I just wanted that on the record, that palm trees aren't trees. That's it, they are grass. Okay.
Just took a bridge down there.
And this is not a land use issue, but I'm just bringing this up again because I will not be able to be at the 21st meeting. And I just wanted to ask the staff and county administrator regarding any upcoming meeting between us and the school board. I don't know, I don't think that we have a date yet scheduled.
I saw an email.
Is there a date scheduled where we're going to meet? I know there was one and then it was canceled. So pertaining to the partnering or not with the school board regarding any referendum items. So I just wanted to, the clock's ticking, we go on recess, and I just want, we're down to the wire now, and I don't want that to be a concern. And if it goes down to the wire to the 21st, I won't be able to vote on that.
Anything else?
That's it,
Thank you. Commissioner Whitmore?
No, I apologize, I have to keep standing because of my back surgery. That's the only thing. I think people thought I was rude, but I'm sorry, but I have no other comments.
With that, meeting's adjourned.
What about the attorney?
No comments.
And we have a workshop at 1:30 here, down here,
Regular meeting.
What is that, too?
The budget meeting.
a budget meeting here.
Budget meeting.
Here at
Seven?
1:30.
1:30.
Today.
Regular.
At
Today?
1:30.
Okay.
Yes.
It's our budget meeting.
1:30, on your agenda.
Yes.
The 20th, though.